All right, the time being 6 o'clock and this being the Plymouth Select Board, I will call to order at this time the Tuesday, June 24th, 2025 meeting of the Plymouth Select Board. Please join the board in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. This meeting of the Plymouth Select Board is taking place in a hybrid format. Members of the board are joining us here in person at the Great Hall at Town Hall. Members of the public or presenters may be joining us virtually over the Zoom webinar platform or physically at the Great Hall here at Town Hall. Members of the public who wish to attend this meeting may do so physically at the Great Hall, or they may join via that Zoom webinar, the link for which is located on the agenda that is posted on the town website. Members of the public may also observe the meeting on Comcast Channel 9 or Verizon Channel 47 or over the local scene streaming platform on YouTube. Members of the public are also reminded, pursuant to Massachusetts general law, that any person may make a video or audio recording of an open session of a meeting of the Select Board after notifying the chair, subject to reasonable requirements of the chair, so as to not interfere with the conduct of the meeting. At the beginning of the meeting, the chair shall inform other attendees of any recordings. At present, we are only aware of the recording being made by the local scene for the broadcast and the Zoom webinar. All right, so that brings us into our agenda proper. The first item on our agenda would be public hearings in regards to aquaculture license renewals. So we have in our packet the memorandum in regards to this. There are aquaculture licenses listed for James Shores of 7 Alvin Lane in Plymouth, William Marani of 331 Sandwich Street in Plymouth, Kevin Houston of 77 Old Barn Road in Plymouth, and Marina Houston of 77 Old Barn Road in Plymouth. So I will call the hearing to order and open the hearing. Is there anyone here to speak? We'll take them in the order that they're listed. So James Shores is listed first. Is there anyone here in person to speak on behalf of the application for James Shores? Yes, please take the podium, introduce yourself.
Good evening, James Shores, 7 Alvin Road. I'm just speaking on the memorandum that you just read off. It said 7 Alvin Lane. It should be road, so I don't know if that's important to this hearing or not.
I'd say it's a Scrivener's error.
Yep.
So I don't think
it's correct in the other in the prepared licenses. It's correct. It's just on the memorandum.
Okay, we will correct that. Would you like to say anything else in regards to your application other than clarifying?
Just thank you for the opportunity to provide the lease.
Okay.
It's learning a lot. It's a lot of fun. Trying to make a business out of it is a little bit more difficult, but we're working.
All right. Any questions from board members? Mr. Golden?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate you being here, Mr. Shores. Could you tell us a little bit about how your business is going? What sorts of activities you've got going on the farm? Yes.
Currently, I am the smaller of the aquaculturists on the leases. I came into it thinking I'm going to do it as a hobby, start out as a hobby, make it into a business. I quickly figured out that it's very difficult to do that on these leases because of the tide restrictions and the amount of work that's involved. So it's taken me 3 years to get to a point where I think I have a game plan to make it into a business. But to do it as a hobby is very, very difficult, very time-consuming to meet the needs of the town and for your requirements.
I do see here that you have been meeting the minimum investment requirements, though.
Yeah, I have. Yes.
What sorts of things have you been investing in to get the business going?
To meet the requirements for the town, it's basically gear, cages, bags, and then seed meets those requirements. Yep.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, any questions from other members of the board for Mr. Shores? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there anyone here other than Mr. Shores to speak in favor of Mr. Shores' application? Is there anyone online? Okay. Do we have anyone here to speak in opposition of Mr. Shores' application? All right. Seeing none, we can keep the hearing open and go through each of the applicants, and then we'll close the hearing once. The next applicant listed is William Marani. I don't see Mr. Marani physically present. Mr. Hunter?
I did talk to Bill Marani. These hearings were originally scheduled for the 10th, and I think he's out of the country. He did say he was going to try and join by Zoom, but I'm not sure if he was able to do so.
Okay. If in his absence, would you have some knowledge as harbor master, of course, of the activity in the harbor?
Sure.
So would you like to say anything on behalf of Mr. Marani's or in favor of Mr. Marani's application?
Yes, as mentioned in the memo provided to the board, we do recommend Bill or William Marani be renewed. He actually works out of the boat ramp adjacent to our office. We see him multiple times a week working tides and bringing gear back and forth. So we can absolutely attest to his work ethic and being out there on the flats trying to make this business work.
Okay. And Mr. Marani is not on the Zoom? Okay. His activity is outlined in the memo from the harbor master, which is available on the packet that is viewable by members of the public on the town website. So we do have that. Does any members of the board have any questions for Mr. Hunter in regards to Mr. Marani's application? Okay. Anyone other than Mr. Hunter here to speak in support of Mr. Marani's application? And no one on Zoom, Jade? Okay. Anyone here to speak in opposition of Mr. Marani's application? And no one on Zoom, Jade? All right. All right. So that brings us to the next listed applicant, which is Kevin Houston. Are we joined physically by Mr. Houston? Are we joined virtually? Excellent. Kevin Houston, you may unmute yourself and you can say a few words in support of your application, and then we may have questions for you.
Hi, if you can hear me, this is Kevin Houston, 77 Old Barn Road in Plymouth. And I was working until 6 o'clock, so I was not able to make it in person. We are working towards our agricultural land that we have out there, both myself and my wife. We've purchased equipment. We've yet to purchase seed. We were in the process and had a few hiccups along the way, but we are hoping to keep the process going. Thank you.
All right. Any questions? I see Mr. Golden has a question for Mr. Houston.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Houston, thank you for joining us virtually tonight. Could you talk a little bit about what investments you have made and how you're using the farm?
Yes, we have purchased equipment, and we were working on purchasing and placing seed this spring, but we fell behind. So as of right now, we have not actually placed anything on the farm. It's all between our house and where we're working on the cages.
Could you tell us a little more about why you haven't been able to actively farm?
Well, we did have a hiccup in the family. We had to take in, because of the war in Ukraine, we had to take in my wife's family, her father, stepmother, and 2 children. So right when we got our aquacultural license, we were we needed to help family members, and we had to house them for about 3 years, which did take up a lot of our money and time. So they have chosen to go home in the spring, and so now we're pushing forward on our personal farm work.
Thank you for sharing that. I'm glad to hear that your family's able to return home, and I have no further questions.
Mr. Quinton?
Chad, this one I guess is for you. So in the case where Mr. Shores and is it Marani? I don't know if I'm saying it right. They've already done seed and all that, right?
Correct, yes.
And so we have Kevin and Marina, who are husband and wife, haven't because they've had some issues.
Correct, yeah. And
So they're asking us for the board, for a 2-year license. That's correct? An
we're
additional 2 years?
Yeah, we're recommending, and I've talked to Kevin and Marina about this, your first initial 3 years is really to kind of get your business up and running. In this case, obviously there's been some delay, and instead of typically you'd go out to 10 years after that first renewal if they're up and running. So I talked to Kevin a while back about this, about just extending sort of that trial run to make sure that they do plant seed and get their operations up and running before we go to a longer 10-year license renewal.
Oh, okay, because that's where I was going to ask you next. If it was, and the reason being, well, because I think you have, 16 people on the waiting list for that too, right now?
Currently, right now, we have 22 people on the waiting list.
22,
waiting
and
for
that's
space.
All right, so just so I understand this, you're going to give them, you're recommending a short-term lease,
Correct.
not a 10-year.
Yeah, I think the idea here was to buy them a little more time to try and get their business started. And if they
Okay.
do meet the investment requirements and they're up and running by the end of the shorter term, then they could apply for the 10-year.
Then they come back before us again for a 10.
Correct, yes.
And what do you do to actually check on it? I mean, I don't know, one of these days I want to go out for a ride and check this out, but
Absolutely.
how do you monitor that? I know that's not your priority every day naturally, but.
That's a great question. So every year, all of our individual license site holders and growers submit an annual report to us. And part of that annual report, we're trying to gather information, try and find out if there's any issues that they're running into,
Receipts
disease.
too and stuff like that,
Yep,
right?
so-
Yeah, and that's coming back to me.
So we do that, and part of that application or that review is the expenditure. So the town has opted for to show substantial use defined in Mass General Law for these sites. There's an investment requirement, and Jim kind of pointed out earlier that's $1,500 per acre, and I believe most of these are 2-acre sites. So that's $3,000 to be invested in either seed or gear. You can't use it to buy a boat. You can't use it to buy a truck. Seed or gear. So that's what the town has used as that measuring stick to get to substantial use. And they have to provide receipts to us, which need to be verified to show that they, in fact, did purchase the seed or the gear and that it's been paid for within that calendar year. So we go through a pretty lengthy process with them. If we have follow-up questions, we go back to the grower, try and get a little more info. And then ultimately, I think you guys received the report that was generated as well, just kind of outlining, who reported, who did not report, or who, we're still working on information from.
And the last question I have is, and this is for any of them, actually, that whole leases. If they wanted to sell their lease, what is the process for that? Do you have to okay that? Does it come back with this board?
So the
Or,
board,
in other words, I don't want somebody just flipping it that hasn't, and I use that term because it's an easy term, that hasn't planted, whatever you want to call it. In other words,
So under-
I don't have an issue with them doing it, but I want to make sure they're doing it. They're not doing it for $1.
So under Mass General Law, when they are assigned a license site from the board, they do have the ability to request to transfer that site from the board. So they would have to come back before the board,
yeah?
request the transfer.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Any questions from board members for either Mr. Houston or Mr. Hunter? Mr. Golden?
Thanks, Chad. The one person who didn't submit their reports to you,
Yep.
does that trigger a lease violation?
So we're trying to communicate with that person that they should be turning in their annual report. It's obviously overdue, and we wanted to give you guys this report as part of, because we had a number of renewals, just for awareness purposes. So we'll continue to work with that individual. I mean, the hopes are that they file their report, that although it's due and past due, that they do file and provide the receipts needed. If they do not, then we could come back to the board to take action against that site.
Is this the first year that they haven't submitted?
There's always sort of stragglers, like pieces that are
No,
left
I mean
out.
this one
This
particular
one,
person.
I'd have to double check.
Okay.
I believe this was a transfer. So it was an existing lease site that was transferred to Cam Dobratz, and so I don't know how much time is left on that. He's not in sort of that 3-year trial run anymore.
Do you happen to know if it's an active farm?
Good question. I'd have to double check on that, too.
Okay. Because if there are so many people who are waiting, and this person is neither working the farm nor reporting to you as required by their lease, I think we should probably
Yep.
rescind their lease.
Yeah.
Yep, we can work on that.
It would also be helpful if we could know the folks who have submitted their reports but haven't met the annual threshold,
Yep.
how many years in a row they've not met that threshold
Right, sure.
for investment.
Yep.
Thank you.
Other questions for Mr. Houston or Mr. Hunter? So, Mr. Hunter, so your recommendation for Mr. Houston, as well as, we haven't gotten to his wife's hearing yet, but the question's coming up now, was for a renewal for 2 years as a trial, a further trial, basically, over the original 3. I guess with 22 residents as of now in the queue waiting, and this family, I understand their familiar difficulties, and I'm sympathetic to that, but they do have 2 sites within the family. I would personally feel more comfortable giving them a 1-year extension and seeing how they do with those 2 sites over the 1 year, rather than holding up these 2 sites for an additional 2 in case something else happens, or for whatever other reason it's not acted on. So do you think that would be, is that a workable time frame that they could make substantial efforts in order to demonstrate a commitment to utilizing these sites as intended?
Hearing Kevin earlier, I think he did say that he was looking to plant some stuff in the spring, but that might have been derailed. You do have typically a growing season, so you wouldn't put oysters out like late fall. Typically, winter's not a great time. They're not growing, and there's a lot of potential storm impacts that you might have.
Right.
So I think that would be a discussion with them, but I also think that substantial use or the investment requirements could absolutely be met.
And they could plant next spring, because there's a...
Correct, yeah.
Right, so...
Yes, they could.
So, okay. So, but with that caveat in mind, that's workable from a measurable perspective, for lack of a better term?
Yes, really, it's just the public hearing that we would have to obviously do that in a year to renew. But at that point, we would have probably more information, a better idea as to their plans moving forward.
Okay.
So I think that would be great for them to be able to provide an update to the board that might make them more comfortable going out a little further.
Okay. And Mr. Houston, if we were to give you a 1-year extension, as I suggested, do you believe you could use that time to do, as Mr. Hunter had suggested, plant next spring and make other demonstrable efforts to demonstrate that you were going to be utilizing the site as intended when these licenses were issued?
Yes, sir. If we were to have an extension, we'll have seed on the farm in the springtime, which means that if we were to meet back in June of next year, we would have the seed in place. We have all the equipment, we just don't have the seed. So we would be putting that in the spring if we were to be extended.
Okay. Any other questions for either Mr. Houston,
just have a
Mr.
comment.
Quintel? Go ahead.
I just want to let the board know that I know this whole family, and they're very respectable, and they have had some issues with what's going on in Ukraine and a health reason, which I don't want to go into. But Mr. Houston is a firefighter, and Marina also worked in town hall here with us for years. I believe she's in nursing now. But so I just want to add that, and they're both, it's a very respectable family, but I think we need to see a little bit of seed somewhere and make everybody happy. So, okay.
All right. Thank you. All right. If there's no more questions for Mr. Houston, we'll move on to Marina Houston. Is Marina joining us virtually?
I'm here.
All right, Marina, if you'd like to say a few words about, obviously your husband just spoke, and I know that there are some commonalities, but some few words about your application and why you would like to have an extension to your aquaculture license at this time.
Yes, of course. Thank you for opportunity to talk. And Kevin did go to lots of classes, actually. He did take a class that Mr. Hunter sent this spring. Also, he's been going to conferences in Rhode Island for a few years. And it was very interesting. So he does have kind of a plan of what he wants to do or how we want to do it. And my point of view is that I'm looking more into environmental area, and for me, planting oysters would be more like cleaning the ocean. But again, I have to look more into that. So if Kevin is looking into more business, I'm looking more into how can we plant oysters to clean up the ocean more. That's my idea of the farm there.
Okay. Any questions for Marina Houston? All right. Anyone here to speak in favor of either Kevin or Marina Houston's applications aside from Kevin or Marina Houston? And anyone online? Anyone here to speak in opposition to Kevin and Marina Houston's applications? Anyone online? Okay. All right. And last call for any questions from board members? All right. If there are no additional questions, I'll close the hearings at this time. So we have in our packet recommendations for James from the Harbor Master for James Shores and Bill Morani's licenses to be renewed for a 10-year period, and the recommendation from the Harbor Master was for 2 years for Kevin and Marina Houston's, although as I expressed, I would prefer 1, but I'm just 1 of 5. So I will defer to the board if we want to. We could take them individually, the votes, or we could, if we wanted to extend 2 for 10 and 2 for a different period of time, we could take those 2 as groups, but I will open the issue up for the board to make a motion.
Mr. Chair, I would make a motion that we approve Mr. Shores and Mr. Morani for a 10-year license renewal.
All right. Mr. Golden has moved that we renew the licenses of James Shores and William Morani for 10 years. Any second to that motion?
I'll second that.
Ms. Iaquinto has seconded. Any discussion from members of the board? All right. Hearing and seeing none. Mr. Golden?
Yes.
Ms. Iaquinto?
Yes.
Mr. Cohan?
Yes.
Mr. Quintel?
Yes.
And myself, yes. It is unanimous. James Shores and William Morani's licenses have been renewed for a 10-year period. That leaves us with Kevin Houston and Marina Houston's licenses. Pleasure of the board.
Mr. Chair, I would make a motion that we approve Mr. and Mrs. Houston for a 1-year license renewal.
Second.
All right. Mr. Golden has moved and Mr. Quintel has seconded that we extend Kevin Houston and Marina Houston's licenses for a 1-year period, or renew them for a 1-year period. Any discussion? Mr. Golden?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think that the Houstons deserve an opportunity to work the acreage that they've been allotted. I'm sympathetic towards their family situation. I'm happy to hear that their loved ones are able to return home. I think we should give them another year to see if they can work this out, and we can always revisit this next year.
And any other discussion? If no one else, I will say, I think this strikes a balance between, things happen in life. Sometimes things don't go according to plan, and there are delays, and I think we need to have some understanding of that, but it also strikes a balance between the 22 other individuals that are on the waiting list. So, there can be a demonstrated period here of investment and use of these acreages. So I hope to see that next year, if I'm still here. And if not, we can revisit. But I wish the Houstons well, and I intend to vote in favor of the one-year renewal. Any other discussion? Hearing and seeing none. Mr. Golden?
Yes.
Ms. Iaquinto?
Yes.
Mr. Cohan?
Yes.
Mr. Quintal?
Yes.
And myself, yes. It is unanimous. We have renewed the Houston's licenses for one-year periods. All right. That brings us into the listed licenses. We have some one-day wine and malt licenses, outdoor amplified music, common victualler, and inholder. Wish of the board in regards to the listed licenses.
Make a motion to move them all as listed.
Second?
All right, Mr. Quintal has made a motion to move them as a group. Mr. Golden has seconded. Any discussion? Hearing and seeing none. Mr. Golden?
Yes.
Ms. Iaquinto?
Yes.
Mr. Cohan?
Yes.
Mr. Quintal?
Yes.
And myself, yes, it is unanimous. We have approved the listed licenses as a group. That brings us into the administrative notes. We have 4 listed administrative notes. Pleasure of the board.
Mr. Chair, can we pull item number 2 out, please?
And deal with it individually?
Please.
Okay. All right, so we'll deal with item 2 separately. Wish of the board in regards to admin notes 1 and 3 and 4.
Move approval as a group.
All right, Mr. Golden has made a motion that we approve admin notes 1, 3, and 4 as a group. Do I have a second?
Just on administrative note number 1, the minutes from May 27th, they have me as absent from
Okay.
that meeting. I just want to make sure that gets changed. I was present.
You were. Okay. So would you, all right, Mr. Golden, would you incorporate that edit
Yes, I
into
will.
your motion? And Mr. Cohan, would you care to second that?
I'll second that.
All right. It has been moved, it has been seconded that we approve admin notes 1, 3, and 4 with the edit that Mr. Cohan was in fact present for the 5/27 meeting. Any further discussion, including any additional edits or additions to the listed meeting minutes? Ms. Iaquinto?
Yes, I had a question on administrative note number 3. In Mr. Silver's backup memo, he clearly states that he wants us to vote to allow fee waivers, but then there's an additional restriction that he asks us to consider if you receive the fee waiver, that you're conditioned to a 2-year renewal for the first cycle. It wasn't clear to me if that was something that we needed to discuss and agree on, the second part of that, or if we were just approving the fee waiver. That's
admin note 2.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So
But
sorry.
we'll-
Number 2.
We can certainly circle back on that. But
Okay.
okay. Any questions or discussion on admin notes 1, 3, or 4? All right. Hearing and seeing none. Mr. Golden,
Yes.
Ms. Iaquinto,
Yes.
Mr. Cohan,
Yes.
Mr. Quintal,
Yes.
and myself, yes, it is unanimous as to admin notes 1, 3, and 4. So that brings us to admin note 2. Do we have any, Ms. Iaquinta, did you want to bring that topic back up about the fee waiver and then the reduced inspection or modified reinspection cycle?
Yeah, it wasn't clear to me if we were voting for one part or for both parts on it, so I just wanted to make sure that we were clear on what we were discussing and voting on.
Yeah, and I think as we From the presentation we received previously, we don't necessarily have to go with just that recommendation. We could make a different recommendation in regards to that. So we can articulate what the will of the board is if there's a consensus as to that. We could take separate votes as to the fee waiver issue and then a separate vote as to the reinspection date if people prefer. Do you have an opinion, since you brought up the issue, about either of those?
No, I don't have an opinion. I just wanted to make sure that it was clear that there were two parts to it.
Okay. Any other questions? Mr. Silva, could you, I have a query about it. So I understand the fee waiver from the prior presentation that we had on it, and I think that makes a lot of sense. Get people to come forward and identify the issues and get on the radar. So that's worth waiving the fees. In terms of the renewal, though, do we want to make it, if you have, because when you explained it earlier, you were talking about the discretion that you could extend basically up to the 5-year period, but you don't have to. You could say, you got to come back in 4 years, you got to come back in 2 years, whatever.
Jason Silva for the Record Inspectional Services. That's absolutely accurate. We can choose a time frame from 5 years to less than, whatever deems appropriate. What I wanted to offer for the board was a scenario where we're waiving a fee, but not for a total of 5 years. 5 years will be the standard, and that given the fact that we're waiving a fee, it seems that it could be considered appropriate to only waive the fee for 2 years as opposed to the full 5-year cycle. But that's again, I guess you could say two separate but similar items to be considered at the same time.
Okay. So, but would it make sense to have it be, rather than just 2 years, to be up to 2 years? So that if, I guess I'm just envisioning a scenario where if there's a place that is in particular distress or need of addressment, that if you only gave them, say, a 1-year renewal based on their circumstances, that then you could give them time to fix whatever significant issues there are that make you want to accelerate that reinspection.
Yeah, I'd say that's a fair statement. We'll certainly be addressing enforcement, for lack of a better term, or deficiencies in its kind of own context, right? If issues are wrong or need to be fixed, we'd be addressing them quite quickly. And I think that the time factor is on just the queue on the renewal,
right?
And that I think even in the presentation I expressed that if we do find the fire chief and myself feel that if we do find particular properties are problematic, that the cycle would be shortened to try and ensure that the residents don't their safety is not circumvented by poor management.
Right.
And so that there is that scenario. I'd like to think that people that are bringing and offering themselves up to have their inspections would not likely be challenging to get them to be compliant. And I'd like to think that's kind of the second wave of our push on these is likely facing those. We do have a few that we know are challenging, but the goals of this kind of program or incentive is to try and bring out the ones that are easy, that are compliant, and want to show their tenants to demonstrate compliance. I think we'll get a few, I hope many, but my intention is to continue to push the program to the point where landlords are feeling a bit of pressure to comply with the state building code.
Sure.
Whereas in the past it hasn't been that way.
Okay. And do you think having the discretion to have a 1 year or whatever time frame you wanted would be a useful tool? Or would you prefer to keep it to, if you're going to get a fee waiver, 2 years?
I suggested the fee waiver for only 2 years as an option because I don't want buildings to fall off the radar. Somebody comes, gets their inspection, and then 5 years later, because of record keeping, staff turnover, whatever issues, we have properties that, although they passed they keep their certificate and just kind of fudge the number over or whatever it might be. I want to try and keep things active, and I don't want to just arbitrarily waive fees without the whole goal is to get them in the system to keep calling us back every cycle. 5 years can be a long time. Landlords can change, owners can change, and it may be ineffective if we're not getting right on top of it, getting the renewal in 2 years.
Okay. And you don't have any concern about a bunch of inspections coming up in 2 years, staffing-wise and workload-wise?
No, I don't feel so. All of our inspectors are skilled and out there every day doing the work. The workload is something I think at this point, because we don't have a heavy accountability to these things in front of us, that I think we can work on and then address any workloads over when they come in. So no, I don't think there's any problems with us meeting demands. It'd be wonderful if everybody calls us tomorrow. Maybe it would get me out of the office more and do some inspections. So
Yeah.
I'd be happy if we have more than we need.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Any other questions for Mr. Silva? All right. So, I guess in terms of soliciting a motion, I think we should articulate what we want to do in regards to the 2-year time frame. So whether we want it to be, I get my one concern, my one reservation with it being listed as 2 years and what we vote on is if there are serious issues that need to be addressed in a tighter time frame and we want eyes on those issues, giving Mr. Silva and his department the ability to say, we need to look at this again in 1 year might be a useful tool. It could say, we could condition that be up to 2 years, as opposed to if it's listed just as 2 years, then somebody could say, well, but I was entitled to 2 years because you waived my fee. So that would be my preference, is that a motion be made that it be up to 2 years, but I will defer to the will of the board. Speaking of that will, do we have?
Yes, I agree. I think that up to 2 years gives the Office of Inspectional Services that leeway.
Okay.
I'll support that.
So would that be a motion?
That would be a motion, yes.
All right, so Mr. Cohan has made a motion that we waive the fees and that they be conditioned on a reinspection for no longer than 2 years after the waiver of the fee, but it would be the discretion of the inspectional services. Do we have a second to that motion?
I'll second that.
All right, it has been moved, it has been seconded. Any discussion? Mr. Golden?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We heard from at least the fire chief in our last presentation that this is going to cost the town some more cash. So I'm not in favor of waiving these fees. So therefore, I'll vote no.
Thank you. Any other discussion? All right. Mr. Quintal, go ahead.
Well, I don't know about discussion, but now that David brings that up, is that true? I mean, are we going to have to fund a position for this, or an unfunded position, I should say?
I think it was just on the fire side that they were
Yeah,
concerned.
I wouldn't even attempt to try and speak for the fire department. Inspectional services is fine with our
Okay.
staffing. I do know that he did mention some staff issues, but again, I can't speak for fire.
Do you have an opinion as to whether the cost of waiving these fees is outweighed by the benefit of inspecting more of these properties?
If one life is saved, there's no issue on cost. That's the goal, is try and save lives. And if we can save property at the same time, then there's people's property that could ultimately be saved as well. A pet, anything that we can do to try and, save a life.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Any other discussion or questions? Yes, Ms. Iaquinto.
Mr. Silva, can you, now that the issue of cost has been raised, can you just clarify for the public what the actual fee would be that would be waived?
We have on apartment buildings escalating fee that's $150 for the first basically multifamily, and then $5 per unit beyond that. So properties like, as an example, Oasis would pay substantial fees every 5 years for us to go through, check exit signs, emergency lights. Smaller properties, 3 or 4 family units, would be a few $100s. So in the essence of these large properties like Oasis, they've already are in our system. They are not flagged as one of these, what could constitute as a fee waiver. Any of the new buildings are automatically in our systems that we're doing them. The companies that run these buildings need these annual inspections to be done to meet corporate obligations. So these, again, are really targeted towards, maybe somebody that's got a 3 or 4 family in Plymouth, maybe lives on one portion of it and rents the other portions of it. And maybe we can save them a few $100s, enough money that they can then repurpose that money to buy some batteries for their smoke detectors, maybe hire an electrician for an hour or two, and then hopefully get a building that we have for the next 10 years or more without any maintenance.
Thank you. And for me, the public safety benefits do outweigh the cost investment, so I would vote yes.
Mr. Cohen?
Yeah, I have to agree that any way that we can incentivize people to participate in this program does outweigh the significance of those benefits to the community in terms of safety and property to get them in the system so that in the future they're part of the process in paying the fee. But I think it's a good way to incentivize people to participate in this program that are not currently.
Any other discussion? I would agree with Ms. Iaquinta and Mr. Cohen that I think that while there is a cost, obviously, of waiving these fees, it's better to inspect these places and have eyes on these properties so that we make sure that residents are safe. I think that will also improve our operations and costs in other ways, because if we're fixing things that could lead to issues like a fire, and then we don't have to respond to a fire, and we don't have that property loss, then, yeah, we waived a fee, but we saved town resources fighting the fire, as well as loss in property value, certainly potentially loss of life, or all the other costs that would be borne by the residents and their family of a fire. So I think that the up to 2-year period, we will get the money from them on their reinspection. So I think it's a reasonable compromise, personally. Any other discussion?
Just one question.
Mr. Quintal?
Jason, just so I understand it again, like the large, by like Walmart, what is it, Avalon, or whatever it might be, they still have to comply and pay, correct?
They do, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, anybody that's recently been built in Plymouth is already in the system, and again, their structures really are reliant on having a certificate because they're familiar with the state building code. There's no way that these large corporations would invest in properties.
Now Algonquin would fall in that suit,
Yeah.
too.
So we have, we inspect them every 5 years.
Okay.
Many of the properties aren't 5 years old yet, but they're already in the system. They would not be what I would call eligible for a fee waiver when, again, they've not even met their 5-year schedule yet.
Okay,
All right.
thank you.
You're welcome. Any other discussion? Hearing none, I will call for the vote. Mr. Golden?
No.
Ms. Iaquinta?
Yes.
Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
Mr. Quintal?
Yes.
And myself, yes. 4 in favor, 1 in opposition. Admin note 2 does carry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and the board.
Thank you. All right, so we have approved the listed admin notes. That brings us into our agenda items proper. The first listed agenda item being 40B project eligibility / site approval. And again, the details of this agenda item are included in the packet that are posted on the town website. We are joined by Lee Hartman, Director of Planning and Development. Mr. Hartman?
Good evening. Pulte Homes has filed what's called a site eligibility letter with the Mass Housing, seeking to do a 40B in North Plymouth. The 40B consists of 3 separate buildings, a total of 163 units, 63 off of Hedge Road, 50 off of Court Street, and 50 off of Prince Street. The board will recall previously we had this discussion. We worked at a staff level on an MOU to discuss whether or not this was a project that the town could support or not support. We put that MOU together. It was presented to this board, and the town and the board chose not to support this 40B. So based on the conversation that happened that meeting and the conversations we've heard from the board, we drafted the letter that you have for your consideration tonight, again, based on the feedback we had from that meeting. And again, this is a letter that recommends that the town, recommends that the state not issue a site eligibility letter and not allow this 40B to go forward. So you have that there. And what I would note, in addition to recommending to the state that they not issue an eligibility letter, and that would stop the whole process, that also we included at a minimum, we identified the mitigation that, and we'll attach the MOU that we had drafted that Pulte had accepted, but again, was not acceptable to the town. So this says, please don't allow the 40B to proceed. However, if you do, at a minimum, we're going to look to have those mitigation measures incorporated into a 40B when it is presented to the ZBA through the 40B process. And the other thing I just mentioned also is that this Thursday at 11 o'clock, starting, I believe, at Court Street, Mass Housing is holding its site eligibility meeting on site. So they do this each time. I will be attending. And again, they have an on-site that is this Thursday at 11 a.m., where they'll look at the site, take any kind of comment at that meeting, and then, again, based on any letters they submit, what happens at the site, they'll render a decision as to whether or not they issue a site eligibility letter or not for this project. So again, you have a draft there for your consideration to forward to the state if you choose. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Hartman. Any questions for Mr. Hartman? Mr. Cohen?
So from your experience over the years with 40B and the state and how they may look at a site eligibility, what do they focus mostly on? What is, typically, what would they give, where does the state start to zero in on, that's why we're not going to give the site eligibility?
So the state, and as they've done this for years, has stated that there is a severe housing shortage in Massachusetts, and that the need to provide housing overrides almost anything else that's out there. And so the bar is very high to show that there is something that overrides this stated housing need that the state has stated, going back to the 1970s with the 40B process. So it's a very high bar to try to convince the state that there is something overriding.
Right. I see the argument that you are making for the denial. And you point to a number of units coming online here in Plymouth. Plymouth is taking on an enormous amount of housing units compared to other towns across the state. We're leading that. So we're in a unique circumstance. We're only surpassed by the city of Boston and the city of Cambridge. I did note in here that, do you think it would be helpful to talk about the water delivery, the water capabilities of the town being stretched at a certain point?
I don't think we really have that evidence. And
Right.
in addition, we also have the new policy that the board adopted for the zero flow, so that whenever a new project comes in, they either have to do the mitigation or provide monies to basically have a zero balance of any new water being used. So I think that would be a hard argument. We also talked a little bit about whether we could argue about traffic. And we can all say traffic is bad, but you need something more than just bad. The level of service is a level of service F or something, and we don't have that either.
I've had to, on the Zoning Board of Appeals, I had to sit on a number of these cases over the years, and at different times we would be opposing in safety and traffic. In water was also something that we found that the state would, favor in terms of a denial that our water services were being stressed across the entire town of Plymouth, being one of the fastest growing towns in Massachusetts, bringing on these housing units and the demand on our water supply. We've talked about the future need of the town when it comes to wells, so it's just a thought, as you construct this letter and you send it off. I just thought that you cover the traffic, you cover the number of units that we're bringing on board. I remember over the years at different times water was something that they did take under consideration in terms of the health and safety of the residents. It kind of fell into the safety.
Again, with
area.
our balanced policy of balanced water, I think that would be a hard argument to
No,
make.
it's just something I
Yep.
thought maybe, I'm sure you thought of it. I was just seeing if it could be part
I
of this
will say,
level.
it is disappointing. I think we should be the poster child for how you create housing in Massachusetts instead of being penalized for it, but that's the way the law works.
Yeah. You just want to make sure that the letter that we send asking for this denial is the strongest possible argument we can make. And when you point out the number of units and the traffic, these are strong arguments. I do think that maybe you should consider water as one of them, and what that effect might be. But I'm sure, it's up to you. I just want to make that point.
No, it's your letter, but,
Right.
so it's not up to
But
me.
we're relying on
again,
your expertise.
I think I wouldn't want to have to explain why we have a balanced water policy,
Right.
that there is no impact on the water
Okay.
system to say that
right.
this will have it. In addition, and Bill Coyle's here, I think 150 units is a relatively small number.
Okay, all right, good. So you guys thought it out. I just want to make sure. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Ms. Iaquinta?
In your experience, how likely is the state to respond favorably to a letter like this?
I really don't want to answer that question. And again, what I said before, and if you really want me to, I can, but it's a high bar. It's a very high bar.
So if they come back to us with a less than favorable response, do we have is there a plan B? Is there another step
So
that we can
what
take?
happens here is that they have asked for a site eligibility letter. If the state gives that, then they will be using that and filing with the ZBA for a comprehensive permit. And the ZBA will review that. We will push to have the mitigation measures that we talked about as part of that condition. There's no guarantee that they, A, will agree to it, or B, if we impose it, the state will allow those to stay. The state could always look at those and say, those are uneconomical and we're going to remove one or all of them. But again, I think the next step is if the state grants this, then it goes to ZBA for a 40B approval. If the ZBA chose to deny it, then it goes to the Housing Appeals Committee. If there is an issue there, we could also talk about going through the courts. But again, it's a high bar for 40Bs to be denied.
Any other questions? Mr. Quintal?
So 11 o'clock Thursday, Lee, down on the site. We can go down there and
Yep.
listen
So I'm
in.
going to start. They did ask for anybody who might be going to give them notice, but I believe they're going to start at Court Street. So right next to St. Mary's, whatever. It's not a rectory. It's a
It
community
used to
center.
be. I know what you're in.
Community
yeah.
center.
We used to go roller skating there, yes. So we meet there at 11 o'clock Thursday.
And then they will look at all three sites. So, right, if you look at the St. Mary's Community Building, just to the left, there is a stake there, and that's the driveway for 50 units. If you go to the very end of Prince Street on the left, at the very end, that's a 50 units. And then if you go to the end of Hedge Road and take a left on Sandra Drive, and that would be the other 63 units. I should point out, too, that unlike most of the 40Bs we've seen that are rental, all units count. This is home ownership or condos, so it's only the affordables that will count. So even though it's 163 units, only 25 of those, so 52 or so will count towards our list.
So how many more units is this than the last?
We need about
Proposal.
450 more units to hit our 10% to have Safe Harbor forever. So ZBA right now is reviewing the Claremont, now Avalon project. If that gets approved, that will give us a 2-year Safe Harbor.
But this particular project here, Lee, isn't there like 30 more units proposed this time around than there were?
13 more than when you saw it last. with the
13.
13 more
Okay.
than you saw. So it was 150 before, and now it's 163.
Okay, thank you. All right. And the height, that kind of was a little eye-catching.
Until I look at the plans that are submitted with the ZBA, and again, I think the heights are still similar. I think they're 40 feet or so, 4-story building. I would have to look, though. It's been a while since I looked at the plans.
So if there were 60, say, just saying,
60 feet?
is that,
I'm not optimistic that the state would ever deny a 40B project. But again, we'll have to see what they give us and what the ZBA does.
Okay, so are they going to have another formal hearing on traffic and all?
Yeah, so
I
what'll
mean-
happen is if a 40B is filed, the
Yeah.
state gives us 30 days to act on it. As a 40B, the ZBA acts as all permitting authorities. So they act as a Conservation Commission, the Planning Board, Zoning Board of Appeals, Board of Health, and even if there are some other permits may be issued through the DBW. So they act as a one-stop permit. We have 30 days to act on it. Traditionally, almost every, well, no, not almost, every 40B we have ever dealt with, if we ask for continuances, they give it to us, and sometimes those continuances can go on for months. But we have a short timeline, one permit goes to the board, and there is a public hearing that's held.
Well, I don't want to, jump ahead before that rolls along, but, the concern I had with the traffic then was onto Cherry Street off of Prince Street. I mean, and they were arguing with me that there's no issue there, but I live there, there's an issue there. At certain times, don't get me wrong, but I don't think you can tell the people in these 140 units, don't go down Cherry Street at 4 o'clock. I mean,
Well, there's a rush, it was a rush hour data, too.
Yeah,
In
exactly,
the morning
yeah.
and that, yeah.
yeah. So that maybe they can work on it and as we go through the process and try to have it empty in a different place or in,
Well, that's why, at least in this case, it's not 150 coming out of one driveway. So you have some,
Yeah, exactly.
some off of Hedge, some off of Court, and some off of Prince. Granted, they all go onto the Court Street
Exactly.
corridor, but
Yep.
yeah.
Yep. So, and my last question, I don't know if you know the answer. The steering committee last time had the hearing in the cottage, and it was way too small, and you couldn't hear anybody, and people started hollering, and they blamed me and Ashley Shaw for that, which I don't understand, but,
Was that for, that was probably for the Benny's Plaza one, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
but
So, but yes, sir.
I'm
we could-
unsure this is gonna
We could
draw
talk to the
that-
steering committee about,
maybe, how to-
hopefully they're willing to go to the steering committee, and if they are, we could talk about trying to get them in a bigger, maybe
even a
come
room
here.
in this building or
Yep.
somewhere, so that, just so all the people can be heard and you can hear everybody and run a civilized meeting.
That's assuming the state approves this. They may take your advice.
Right, yeah, okay. I'm
I'd
just
love for them
asking.
to do that, yes. Mr. Cohen?
So just to reconfirm, it's Thursday at 11 a.m. at the
So
St.
there are
Mary's?
3 different sites. I've been told Court Street, so that's where I'm going to start. If I don't see anybody there, I'll probably drive down Hedge Road, and if I don't see anybody there, I'll drive down Prince Street. But I've been told that it starts at Court,
Court.
right next to St. Mary's Community Building.
Okay, so, it's the St. Mary's Parish Center, I think it's
Yeah.
called, Parish Center. And then, in the past, if you, in the future, when we do have a meeting, obviously, the regulations around 40B and the ZBA is they have to accommodate everybody in the room. So in different times, we've had to move meetings to larger venues to accommodate everybody in the room. But that's obviously down the road. But, thank you.
Other questions? All right. If there are no questions, I will solicit a motion. Do I have a motion to approve sending this letter to the state?
So moved.
Mr. Golden moved. Do we have a second?
Second.
Ms. Iaquinto seconded. Any discussion from any members of the board? If no one else does, I will. I think it's important to highlight for this, particularly for members at home. This came before the prior board originally. We had tried to work with this developer to address some mitigation because there's limited things we can do in regards to a 40B, but we wanted them to take our local concerns and address them to make this less impactful on the neighborhood that it was going into, which is already quite developed and quite burdened. I don't know that there's a region in Plymouth that would be welcoming a 40B with open arms, but I think in this particular area, there's been a lot of development recently in the last several years, and I know Mr. Quintal and I both live right near this and have seen over those few years the increase that that development at Cordage Park and at other places has had on that area, let alone with this project. And Mr. Quintal and I both strongly disagreed with their traffic information that they put out there based on our lived experiences in those areas. And that was when it was 150 units. Now it's 163. So they said no in making it more palatable then, and then took their ball and went home, filed their 40B because they don't have to work with us, and made the deal worse. So it's a worse deal than when we didn't like it before. And so I think it's important to highlight that it is becoming increasingly tiresome for out-of-town developers to be making decisions about how our neighborhoods should function and what is acceptable to the people that live there, when this is people concerned about their bottom line and not our residents' lived experiences. So I am strongly in favor of sending this letter, and I hope that the state will deny them this 40B project. I know that the state doesn't have a great track record of listening to us, but they can only listen if we speak, and we are speaking up on behalf of our residents. Any other discussion? Hearing and seeing none, I will call for the vote. Mr. Golden?
Yes.
Ms. Iaquinto?
Yes.
Mr. Cohan?
Yes.
Mr. Quintal?
Yes.
And myself, yes. It is unanimous. We will send that letter to the state in opposition of that 40B project. That brings us to the next listed agenda item, that being Memorial Hall upgrades. And we are joined by Bill Coyle, Director of our DPW.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Bill Coyle, DPW Director. Thank you for having me. As many of you are aware, Memorial Hall is in desperate need of renovations and repairs. Over the past 6 months, the town and DPW staff and others have been working closely with our consultant, DBVW. DBVW is also the consultant that designed the improvements for the town hall, so they're very familiar with the area. So they're here this evening to go over their findings for the feasibility study. I just want to go over the staff that we have here from the town. Carl Anderson, our facilities manager, is here. Joe Goldberg is also here. He's the events director and facilities director for Memorial Hall. And then Sean Redfern is here from DBVW. So to begin with, I'll turn it over to Carl. We have a presentation with many slides. We'll try to go through them as quickly as we can. Carl will begin and then turn it over to Sean and then Joe. So, Carl, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Coyle, for the introduction. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Mr. Brindisi, Mr. Janeo. Thank you for having me. My name is Carl Anderson, Facilities Manager for the town of Plymouth, and I'm here to present a portion of the Memorial Hall Preservation Initiative. With me, as Mr. Coyle mentioned, is Sean Redfern, Associate Principal, DPVW Architecture, and Joe Goldberg, Building Director for Memorial Hall. Is it just the... All right, hot start. Good. Try now. We'll carry on despite the technical difficulties. For my portion, I'm going to discuss the history to present day, the current condition of Memorial Hall, try and highlight that. Mr. Redfern will then discuss the feasibility study created by DBVW, the rehabilitation and some of the estimated costs. And then Mr. Goldberg will discuss the importance of Memorial Hall in the community and the potential for new revenue and growth. For the history of Memorial Hall, you'll see the construction began in 1924. Doors opened to the public in 1926, and it was constructed to host and honor veterans and provide a meeting space and recreational venue for residents. It occupies nearly 2.5 acres of prime downtown real estate in Plymouth's historic district and offers 26,000 square feet of multifunctional space. Some of the renovations that we have completed, that the town has completed, for example, in 2001, we had Einhorn, Yaffe, and Prescott in the building, and some of the things they completed were general building stabilization, code compliance, general restoration of the head house, refinish and refurbish some of the wood doors and floors, new stairs, new elevator, new wheelchair lift, toilet rooms in the basement, and the asphalt shingle roof. In 2005, Einhorn, Yaffe, and Prescott were invited back to complete some additional renovations, which included exterior wall repairs, some head house alterations, some stage house alterations, some architectural repair, mechanical upgrades, electrical component replacements, and some stage and sound upgrades. In 2011, we had a water infiltration analysis completed by CME Associates. When that was completed, the water intrusion has been a known issue for a very long time, since at least 2011 when the study was commissioned. When the study was completed, there's no record of any professional remediation being completed on the conclusion of the study. So they commissioned a study. Study said, this is our recommendation, and there was no further remediation of the water intrusion at that time. So for as long as, since 2011, perhaps longer, we've had water infiltration into the building. That's not to say that DPW and facilities has not done what we can, what we're capable of, and that is to apply epoxy and sealant and try as best we could to keep the water out, but there's been no extensive professional water remediation. We have some article funds that were dedicated to repairing Memorial Hall. So the sum of, let's see, in 2016, the article funds dedicated to Memorial Hall included brick repointing, repair brick veneer, masonry ceiling, for a total of $86,031 allocated to the rehabilitation of Memorial Hall. None of that has been spent to date. It all exists still on the books. And that will take us to present day. Is it working? Thanks much. How do I press play on a slide?
We'll find out. Get something to play here.
I'm not sure. It should say it. Oops.
Next year, we'll upgrade our tech in this room.
Well, included in the presentation are several slides depicting the present-day condition of Memorial Hall. I've got slides showing pooling of water, some video showing water intrusion in the electrical closet. They begin from 8 December 23, and we have numerous photos and from different dates throughout the year of times this occurs. There was another slide from 28 February of last year. Significant amount of water intrusion, different parts of the building. On April 4th, 2024, we had a significant amount of water pouring into the building from 3 sides. And it was around that time that we engaged SGH, architecture firm in Boston, to conduct 2 studies. One would be an additional water remediation, and the other was for structural repairs. There's some structural concerns in the building. One of the slides we would like to show you is some cribbing with lolly columns in the director's office and in the green room, where we've got, literally have lolly columns on 2x6s bracing some of the I-beams going across the office. More images and video from, here we are. So this is down below in the passageway towards the green room. This is the passageway where artists congregate, the talent, the event coordinators, the management of spectacle. They are all down here. This is below the stage level, underneath, heading towards the green room. In the electrical locker there, you can see where the puddling occurs just outside the electrical locker, and that is because the water comes in through the building into the red. Yep. So the water comes in through this electrical room behind the panel, and there's such a quantity that comes through during storms, is that you'll see this puddling in the hallway here. There's a video. That's about an inch of standing water throughout the space, and it is coming in behind the electrical panels here.
It's, I felt the wall's dry all the way around. There's nothing leaking from the window or anything, but you can see the floor. It's coming out looks like it's coming out from under that electrical panel on the other side.
So that first image was from December of 23. Then the one we're looking at is now from February 24. So winters can be particularly difficult on the building. This is April of 24. This is, obviously different space. This is a storage area. And you can see the walls are just permeated. There's puddling on the floor. There's a significant amount of water coming in through the building on 3 sides. And again, so this is the cribbing in the director's office with the lolly columns there. The design in the top left corner is what SGH recommended for us structurally, and they conducted the water intrusion study around the same time as well. Some additional images from September of 24. This is second and third floor images on the left, and again to the right is the electrical room. Pretty consistent drip rate when you're looking at it. And this is just really a demonstration of how the water is permeating the building and in many different locations throughout. Difficult to see from the images, but the wall is pretty saturated. It's pretty wet there. So present day, 10 June 25, this picture, these images were taken this month, and there was some concern about this wall. This is the stage wall. This is behind the stage, the back wall. On the opposite side of this black cement wall is the exterior and the loading dock behind Memorial Hall. This crack was noted in 24 when SGH came through. We shared these images with them, again, because there is a lot of flex in this wall now. That crack, you'll see the flex here. See the shaking? That is a gentle touch. That is a slight push. This wall is 35 feet high, probably 25, 30 feet wide. It is the length and height of the height of the building, the width of the stage. It's a pretty significant, concrete facade that is a finishing wall on the space. The crack was noted by SGH back in 2024, and we shared these new images with them in 2025, and they said, yes, that looks worse. That's increased significantly. We don't know what's going on behind this wall in terms of water intrusion. I think there's a significant amount of damage occurring behind the wall that we cannot see. Their recommendation is to remove the wall. We have a proposal in hand to do just that. We haven't moved on that yet, but we do have a proposal to take the wall apart, tear it down, and what you would have at that point is just steel framing and the exterior wall brick without that finishing cement. Some select board goals and priorities dated 20 August 24 was to conduct a feasibility analysis of Memorial Hall with proposed upgrades to develop a 21st century entertainment venue. We have done that. It was draft format, but it's nearly completed. The feasibility study was conducted by DBVW Architects. And from here, Mr. Redfern, associate principal with that firm, will discuss their findings during the feasibility study. And after that, Joe Goldberg. Thank you.
Mr. Anderson, we have a question at this point.
Yeah, before we move into that, thank you, the information that you were bringing us. So you were showing leaks and...
Bill, your mic.
Sorry. You were showing leaks at different points. Are you determining and finding it to be the roof, or is it the brick facade? Is it coming through windows? Is it coming up from the ground? Where is it coming in? You showed different points of entry. I could deduce that you could see, like in the one with the basement window, that it was coming through the wall.
Correct.
So probably, that water's not being properly controlled when it falls down at gutters, maybe, something of that nature. And then you have brick facades that are being infiltrated over a period of time, the mortar joints.
That's right. The mortar joints, the brick is permeable at this point. That is how the water's coming in. The windows are in a state of disrepair as well. The windows cause a lot of leakage. We think the roof is intact. We don't think there's a lot of leakage coming from the roof.
Right.
It's mainly through the brick facade, through the mortar, the joints, cracks in the masonry.
Yeah. The bricks.
It really depends on how the wind blows.
Yeah.
It's not like it's sheeting down from the roof onto the building. It's, it's wind-driven rain that
Yeah.
is really intrusive and finds a way into the building, regardless of what direction it comes from. But it is coming through the brick, through the wall at this point.
Right.
We had a lot of theories about groundwater. We understand that there is a lot of groundwater
Yeah.
in that area behind Memorial Hall. We've considered digging trenches and installing drainage, things like that. Haven't gotten to that
Okay.
point. And nothing from the study that SGH provided
Right.
suggests that we would benefit greatly from, just digging out, installing a water preventive barrier and some drainage at
Yeah.
that point. A majority of the problems we're having, we're seeing coming through the brick.
Yeah, and that's a nice, well, the nice thing about brick, it can last you a nice 75 years to 100, but then it needs its maintenance for the next 75 years to 100. So obviously the mortar is a major problem, the repointing of the facade of that building. So just trying to get a handle on where you thought the water was coming from. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Quintel?
I believe a lot of it is coming through the building, but I also think there's a lot of groundwater there because the town owned, is it the New Hope Chapel that's next to that?
Mm-hmm.
We own that building. We're going to do a council on aging until we, basically said enough already. But there was water in that building also.
Mm-hmm.
I know they were putting in an elevator or something, and it was just coming in. So I believe there's a lot of groundwater in that area too. So.
Any other questions at this point? All right, we can proceed. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for the opportunity to share our work done on the Plymouth Memorial Hall. When we were hired to take a look at the building program, evaluate the building program, look at the building envelope, the building systems, MEP, FP, and electrical. Also began to look at the building acoustics. In meeting with the building users, we began to understand issues with acoustics in the space. And then we began to look at theatrical equipment, as well as the existing AV equipment and how we might enhance the AV systems in the building. We came with a team of other consultants. We had GGD, which was the MEP engineers, which have done some work on the building. We also had Ascentech, which did the audio and acoustical engineering on the project, evaluating that. And then we had PM&C, which is a cost estimator, who basically put some numbers to the work that we were proposing for the project. So when we first started the project, what we heard from the town was that there was a vision for a first-class entertainment venue that supports music, regional theater, musicals, comedy shows, cage wrestling matches, flexible events such as weddings, and then there's the recreational program that's used in the space right now currently. And also there's the Museum for the Veterans, which is adjacent to the lobby. When you look at these diverse programs in this space, each is going to present its own problem in trying to develop a state-of-the-art venue for theater. But sorry, what we did is we met with the projects, the stakeholders for the project at the town, and we also began to meet with users of the building. And what we got back was feedback on the artist experience, the promoter's experience, and the patron's experience. And we began to dive into these pieces and then began to develop different tiers that the town might be able to pursue within a budget. And so we developed four different tiers for the feasibility study. Each of the tiers builds upon the other one in terms of the construction and the cost. It allows for a phased approach to hopefully fit the town's available budget. So Tier 1A, since the building hasn't been significantly touched in the past 20 years, Tier 1 looks to upgrade the base building, the envelope and the building systems. And then Tier 2 begins to take a look at the inadequacies of the building in terms of the theater space and how to make this a premier space for the performers. And that involves a back-of-house addition to the building. And then Tier 3 and Tier 4 are additional program and enhancements to the building, but these aren't necessarily needed for the function of the everyday function of the building, but they're nice to have potentially. So Tier 1A involves the exterior restoration of the building envelope, and that would involve masonry restoration, dealing with the issues of water infiltration, new windows, restored historic doors, new slate roof, restored cupola, exterior wood restoration and painting. The cost for that exterior work is roughly $3,763,520. Then there's Tier 1B, which begins to deal with all the interior of the building. The interior renovation would include upgrading the MEP systems, new bathroom fixtures, lighting, new electrical service wouldn't be done in this phase, so we would be using the existing 600 amp service in the space. But we would be looking to try to improve spaces within the building, adding concessions areas on the first floor, laying out how you might enter into the veteran spaces, opening those spaces up to the lobby instead of having them behind hidden doors that are currently to the side. In the theater space, we would be adding all new seats, and then beginning to start to look at the theatrical components of the space, adding new riggings into the space and behind the stage. And then we would begin to look at the third floor area in the Blue Room. We would be dealing with the acoustics in the Blue Room, which aren't great at the moment. We would be expanding the concessions area on the third floor, or actually moving it into the Blue Room to offer it more space and better flow. And then we'd be adding bathrooms, an additional bathroom on the second floor, pardon me. And again, all new finishes within the space. And then dealing with the acoustic issues and enhancing the sound system and theater equipment upgrades in the space. So Tier 2, that begins to deal with the back of house of the theater, and that would involve adding new dressing rooms, green rooms, and actors' bathrooms, getting those all up to par to be the premier space venue that the town is desiring. In this phase, we would be dealing with adding a new electrical service to the building as well as a new generator, and then further HVAC upgrades to accommodate the new addition at the back. And then the biggest piece which this begins to deal with is loading into the building, which is a current issue. Is we've added a loading dock onto the side of the building, which also has a lift that gets you up to the stage level. So what we've done with this Tier 2 back of house addition is we've taken the space that's beneath the stage right now, which has the mechanical systems in it, and we've began to carve out some of that space because some of those systems can now move to the roof and be redistributed within the space. And so we've used this section of the site to allow for new dressing rooms and a green room on the basement, which is considered the basement level, which is really the parking lot level of the site. And then moving up to the second floor, we begin to have some program that we can put behind the stage for storage and then get the production crew behind the stage where they're needed. And again, there's the elevator, which gets you up to the stage level and allows you to load onto the stage more easily than they do currently. So the total cost of Tier 2 is $8,042,800. And then Tier 3, which is, these were kind of the nice to haves, but not a necessity for the space to operate. What we did is we looked at adding, on the east side, adding a handicap vestibule so patrons in wheelchairs aren't waiting out in the rain. And then on the west side, we looked at the possibility of adding a tent on the west side that could possibly expand concessions and potentially act as maybe a VIP tent that you could charge additional cost for use. And then this just kind of shows, this is the Tier 2, which just kind of shows the loading and the parking in the back, how it would be reconfigured. So the cost of these renovations would be $566,148. And then Tier 4 was additional stage and enhancements and enhancements in the space for the acoustics. So the image on the left shows acoustic banners hanging from the rafters, which are adjustable banners, which would allow you to adjust the acoustics in the space, whether it's you're in a rock concert or you have the Philharmonic going, you need different acoustics. So the banners in the down position would dampen the space and allow more speech intelligibility in the space. Raised up in the space, they offer more reverberation in the space. So you can somewhat tune the space a little bit. And then also added in this tier would be a stage, motorized stage extension at the front of the stage. This would allow the space to be a little bit more flexible in terms of breaking the front of the stage down to accommodate the different activities that happen on the main stage, on the seating level floor, the orchestra level floor. And then the cost of these enhancements would be $1,326,836. And then we looked at other enhancements for the AV, and we looked at all this as alternates. And speaking with Joe and also speaking with the users of the space, these were some things that they expressed desire for in the space, and they could potentially be charged for by the users because the promoters wouldn't necessarily have to rent these items. They would now be something that you would have in the space that you could potentially gain revenue from those. And then so the total, if you add the total of the four tiers together, it's a number of $28,726,697. And then the AV alternates kind of they all stand alone as something that you could go with the shopping list on.
Mr. Golden?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Appreciate the presentation. So Tier 1A, can you just confirm that gets us out from any of the water problems?
So Tier 1A starts to address all the problems. I think once you start to take the building apart further, you might find additional items, but we based our costs on what SGH had found in their report. Mm-hmm. They had done a couple different studies, and we basically just took that and extrapolated and added it to our costs.
So it could potentially cost more than this, is what you're saying?
I think until you start to get into it further and do some some digging and some maybe some additional destructive things to kind of see what's going on. Okay. It could potentially go up, but at current cost, this is what they're anticipating.
I'm glad to bring up current costs. Are all these figures in 2025 dollars?
So Tier 1 and Tier 1 and 1A and 1B, those are in today's dollars. Tier 2 and 3 and 4 they're brought out 5 years from now. So it gives you kind of time to develop to come up with the cost for those items. Sorry.
So you're projecting a certain level of inflation in costs for
yes.
materials and labor?
So we have
like
escalation is built into those numbers. So Tier 1 and Tier 2 escalation is built into 6 months through what we consider that halfway through construction.
Okay. But it could potentially cost more than this.
It all depends upon the market.
Yes.
And what the contractors are.
If we did all of this, how long would it take to complete?
How long would it take if you did it all? 16 to 18 months, probably.
If we started tomorrow, we could have this up and running next winter or the following winter?
So you have the design period, which would probably be 6 to 8 months, and then you have a construction period on top of that, which can run from 16 to 18 months.
Okay, so it's a 2-year period.
It's probably a 2-year period,
Okay.
yep.
And if you add the two figures in, the audio visual and the construction cost, it's about $33.1 million, correct?
Mhm.
Is this all coming from the general fund?
So we haven't made a final decision on where the sources of funding will come from. I can tell you, though, there has been an application submitted to CPC for tiers 1A and 1B for approximately $22 million. So that's our major focus, because those two tiers are a need, not a want. Knowing that the high cost to complete all 4 tiers would be in the low to mid 30s, we're focusing on tier 1 right now.
So we're going to ask the CPC for $22 million for a single project?
That is what the request will be, yes.
That's a staggeringly high number.
Yeah, we're Lynn Bath, the finance director, did some rough numbers, and taking out a $22 million debt, it's approximately $1.3 million a year in annual debt payments.
Okay.
Over 20 years.
Okay, thank you.
I will in a moment. But so the inflationary, what are you assuming for an inflationary escalator each year?
I have a 15% escalation for the 5 years.
15.
So it's 3% a year.
Okay, so 3%, and is that compounding every year, or is it 15% over?
I'm not the cost estimator,
Okay.
I don't know. I couldn't answer that.
Okay. And does the escalator also apply to the audio-visual equipment alternates?
That does not.
So that's in $2024 as well?
That's in 2024.
Okay. Mr. Quinton?
Yeah, I just have a few questions and comments on the north elevation, which I believe is the rear, right?
Mm-hmm.
How, you going into the parking lot there, how many feet is this proposed? I realize it isn't etched in stone, but
It takes about, the addition comes out about 20 feet, because you're actually taking, part of the addition is actually taking underneath the stage. So you're coming out another 20.
so probably where the employee parking is, if I
Yeah.
was guessing, right around that area there.
Correct. So you're just going to take all of that, and you're going to move it forward.
I'm just going to put this out there. I know this is an expensive project, but I also know, and I think Everett will agree with me, that the VSB center up in the front there is in very, very poor condition. And the other issue we have in that area was always hearing about bathrooms. So whatever we do here, we should have a discussion of, maybe having access to the bathrooms without having access to the whole building while we're doing looking at all this. And the other thing, and I'm just putting it out there, is we do need a VSB center every year. We get asked for astronomical amount of money. I think it's like $500,000 of it. It's around there. And that's just to get it nice. So maybe it's the time to just look at it, and, I'm not saying CPC money or whoever this gets funded pays for it, but, the VSB pays rent, and, there's other options. Where that building is, if it was to come down, you could have additional parking. Maybe we could dedicate the parking off that to pay for that portion of it. We need a new visitor center. I mean, that thing's a joke, really. It's not up to the bathrooms. You have to walk through the whole building to get to them. And we hear this all the time about bathrooms. And we do have a lot of them in Memorial Hall. It's just, how do you get there from here? It's like in the middle of the side of the building. So I don't know if it's too late, or if this north elevation could go up some, and maybe the VSB center underneath, if there's nothing that's pressing there, I don't know, I don't understand all this, but I think it requires conversation if we're going to invest this kind of money in this part of town, that maybe we can get a couple of things out of it that really need to be done. Because if not, we're going to be looking at another couple of million to do that other building over. So maybe it's time to look at the whole thing. I mean, I didn't realize it was this far, but these are just little drawings, correct? I mean, these aren't.
These are it's just a feasibility study.
Right,
It's not,
okay.
It may look like it's far along, but it's not.
So, okay, right. So I'm saying, I would like to see, I don't know how the rest of the board feels, at least we look at it and then we can make a decision of how the money comes and where it comes from. But just keep in mind that other building already, she wanted to do that building over the last 2 years, and we just said it's too much money. So it is coming.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, maybe it's the time we got some height, I don't do what you do naturally, but move some other stuff up and put them on the ground floor, if you will, and it could serve multi-purposes in the back. Just food for thought.
Ms. Iaquinto?
Yeah, so it looks like this was one of the Select Board's priorities for last year, was to conduct this feasibility study. I thought I saw that in this.
Prior year.
Yeah, prior year, okay. So having not been around at that time, I'm just curious about what the driving force behind that, setting that as a priority was. Was it to remediate the issues that are clearly in that current building? Was it to see if we could generate more revenue from the building? A little bit of both?
I think Bill Coyle, DPW Director, it's kind of a dual role. I mean, we know that the building is in desperate need of repairs. So when we're looking at doing the exterior repairs to mitigate any of the water intrusion that's occurring, we know the inside of the building is aging as well. So it seems like it's an opportunity now at this point to make this more of a premier venue on the South Shore that we could have here in Plymouth. So I think it's kind of a dual role. I did want to point out, too, that if this project moves forward to some extent, I'm sure it has to, even if it's just a water intrusion and some different level of repairs internally, we will be going through the designer selection process. So this is just a feasibility study. We'll need an OPM, owner's project manager, would have to be hired to represent the town and then go through the designer selection process. So we have a long ways to go. So to your point, looking at other things that we may want to include in the building, we have plenty of time to do that. So, and I did want to point out too, when Carl Anderson was showing the wall moving, I wanted to point out that's not the exterior wall, that's just a veneer that's moving. So I don't want people to think the building's about to fall down. So I just wanted to point that out. And then we also have Joe was also here to go over his portion of the presentation as well. If you want to allow Joe to speak at this point.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Honorable Board of Selectmen, Select Board, sorry. Joe Goldberg, Director of Memorial Hall for Events and Facility. Hopefully my information isn't as devastating as what you just heard. So what I want to talk about is the growth track and give you a little bit of history before I get into it. I managed Plymouth Memorial Hall for the town of Plymouth from 2008-2012 as a private contractor. In 2012, the economy changed, so the town took it over as a rental facility. So I helped Barry de Blasio at the time write a business plan and create the job that I presently now have, and he took with it. So in 2021, after COVID, the building reopened, the position became available, I came back, and I initiated the business plan that I put forth back in 2012. So that brings us up to our next slide. So in 2021, when I came in, the building opened up in June. The governor gave us okay to start doing events again, and that year we did 39 events. One of the things that is that the sound system that was installed back in 2000 was the original sound system, and it made its money for the time that it had. It should have only lasted about 10 years. It lasted probably a good 15 years or so, and right after COVID, it's like having a car sit for a year and a half and you start it up, all kinds of problems happens, and so the sound system crashed. So following year in 2022, we were getting quotes together, trying to figure out how to replace the sound system, present it to the town. And we did. I was able to initiate the original business plan. We increased shows from 39 that year to 67 the following year. But then you'll notice it started to really jump. In 2023, we installed the sound system, and it went from 76 shows to 103 shows. This past year, we have 108 confirmed shows on the calendar. With our projected sales, we're going to hit 120 shows this year. Our attendees, because of the sound system increase, went from average of 750 back in 21 to 1,100 to 1,200 attendees per show on average. So that is a direct result from one of the improvements that we put into the hall. One of the things that was, it's been an obstacle is the fact that there's been no maintenance done to the hall. And when I say no maintenance, no maintenance. It's been the same paint on the walls pretty much for the last 10 years. So trying to make the most of what we have has been a lot of work, to say the least, but it's been paying off. So some of the rental rates when I came in, it was the same that I had set back in 2008. Once we have the new sound system up and running, Ann Slusser and I worked really hard together. I did all the research in the area, try to figure out what were the average rental rates. We called all the different facilities from north of Boston all the way out to Worcester, got an idea of what they were charging. So then I looked at what it would cost to rent that sound system. When we put the sound system in, we tiered it in like a red light, green light, yellow light kind of process. And so what that means is if an artist is coming to Memorial Hall, they're going to say, we have a list of demands that we need to meet. So if a promoter's bringing a band in, they're going to say, hey, what's our sound system? So I would go green, meaning it hits everybody's expectations. A yellow, meaning it hits 80 to 90% of expectations. To a red, hey, we're just going to have to bring something in. For the money that we were allotted and what we did, we brought in a Nexo Yamaha system that it was a high-end yellow. So it hits almost 90% of our shows. I think in the last year and a half, we've only had 3 shows that did not use our sound system. Now, what that means is that it generates a savings to our customers. So it would cost $4,000 to $5,000 for them to bring in a sound system between labor, time, rigging it, taking it down, and bringing it back out. We now can bring that into them and saves that money so they can bring in a bigger name artist. But what it also means for the town is that we're no longer charging $1,200 rental fee for Memorial Hall's main hall. We're now charging $3,500. So we're increasing our revenue. But it's also saving money to our customers. So in return, we get a bigger name artist and we're getting more shows. That's how we're going from 39 shows to 120 shows in 4 years. We're presenting these more services. So it creates more revenue for the town. One of the things we're looking at is moving forward is we're not increasing. We didn't want to increase rent again because we just had a substantial increase, but we created a $1 per ticket restoration fee. So for every $1 or every ticket sold, $1 will be generated from that ticket sold and will be put into our revolving fund to go towards maintenance of the building. So we don't have to come before you again in 5-10 years and say, hey, we need to have something done. We can actually do it on the go as we go and not have to worry till we're over our heads with it. Some of the opportunities we have for business growth, if a project that we presented today is able to happen, is we can offer full lighting, full sound, full event management, catering in for our artists. One of the things is artists talk a lot, and they'll compare notes to different facilities. I can tell you I've had a lot of feedback when you have the Indigo girls come in and they can't use the dressing room because it's under 3 inches of water. And believe it or not, because our services were so good, the Indigo girls actually came back in less than a year. So you get that repeat business. But it takes a lot of work given the present circumstances that we're in. But what this does is this allows us to create more revenue for the hall to be more sustainable and not a burden to the taxpayers, that we can become more self-sustaining. Some of the other areas that it allows us to have proper concession areas. Right now, we have to put a bar in the Hall of Flags, and the veterans aren't very happy with it, so this allows us to put proper concessions area in, but that also allows us to generate more income, because right now we're limited to maybe 3 concession areas in the hall, long lines. People are like, oh, I'm not going to stand in that line, I'm just going to fight my way to the restroom, go back to my seat. Well, we offer better concession areas where people can get to the restrooms without any aggravations. They can get in shorter lines. It's more revenue. For every 20 cents spent in the hall, for every dollar spent in the hall, 20 cents comes back to the town. So that's a direct revenue increase right there. It also allows us to create policies where our pricing is the same. So if someone comes to Memorial Hall, they know they're going to pay $9 for a beer, or they're going to pay $3 for soda, and they know they're going to get a Coke or a Pepsi product. It allows us to more define what we are, makes it a little bit more professional. The other area, moving on, one of the things that we started is we created a more secure policy. So we have metal detectors now, so everyone's searched when they come in, so it's a safer environment. We also initiated, once you're in, you're in. There's no coming and going. That right there decreased liability on the promoter, decreased liability on the town, but it also increased concession sales because people aren't going to their cars to get things. They come back. Once they're in, they're going to spend their dollars here in town. Our weekly average of events, we have 2.11 right now, presently. So that means we have almost a little more than 2 events a week at Memorial Hall. Our average attendees are about 2,500. But if we include the rec programs, because we have a great relationship with the Plymouth Rec Department, because they do pickleball there, the yoga, line dancing, all their rec programs, tot sports, that adds about another 500. So we're adding about 3,000 people through Memorial Hall on a weekly basis. Our weekly rental days have increased. In the past, it was always a Friday, Saturday, but we're now finding we're renting from Wednesday all the way through Sunday now, and it's pretty consistent. I believe we have Todd Rundgren coming in tomorrow night, so it's opened up the amount of days that we can. One of the things that benefits is we look at this $22 million increase in trying to repair the building, but I want you to understand that every person that comes goes to our hotels, they go to our restaurants, they go to our convenience stores, they support local business. One of the things that we noticed, like we just had Miss Massachusetts come in at Memorial Hall. They rented 100 hotel rooms for 3 nights. That's 300 hotel room rentals from one customer. Not to mention they're staying overnight for 3 nights. So now we have breakfast with them, we have lunch, we have dinner, we have celebrity judges who came in for that. Those are the things that allows us to do that. So when we increase, if we were to do something to Memorial Hall and we increase it, it enhances the customer base who comes in, their experience. They want to come back to Plymouth. They want to stay in Plymouth. So instead of the locals, we have a show where we have 500 or 600 people come, and they're locals that might take a dinner and go home. Now we have people from outside of Plymouth coming in. They're going to have dinner. They're going to take in a show. They're going to stay overnight. They're going to have breakfast, lunch, maybe tour for the weekend, and then leave. It's generating additional dollars beyond Memorial Hall. So something like this would be really good for our community as well as the town. So, any questions on that?
Any questions for Mr. Goldberg, Mr. Quintal?
Joe, I know you touched on the concessions, which is great. What about like kitchen facilities? I think you probably could do a lot of weddings and functions if you had the proper, and there's big money in that, so
yeah.
That's why I'm bringing it up.
Yeah. Right now, we do anywhere between a half dozen to a dozen weddings. If we were to increase our, especially the Blue Room, one of the areas that they didn't really talk about was the added to the Blue Room. Right now, if you go in our Blue Room, it's acoustically challenged. I mean, it can really hurt your ears. The work being done, we would probably be doing anywhere between a dozen to 15 or to 20 weddings a year, just in that one room alone. Mm-hmm. Some of the areas they talked about, like the outdoor tent, that gives us the ability to do multiple shows. We could do a concert in the main hall and have a wedding on the outdoor facility, or up in the Blue Room. It separates it, so we can do more than just one event in that building. So.
I mean, I think the average, you're probably looking at 20,000 a rental, with food and with alcohol.
Yes, absolutely.
If it's done right. So it's something that we should also be looking at in our drafts here, right?
Yeah. Yeah, the revenue we drive in from a wedding just in the smaller Blue Room is equivalent to a full concert in the main hall. So it is a larger area of opportunity.
Back in the day, we used to call it a performer. So if we get some of those numbers together and do a little math, let's see where that can contribute to helping us do our renovation also.
Yeah, we've experienced a 20% growth for the last every year for the last 4 years, compounding on itself. So the numbers that we have today are nothing compared to where we were in 2021 or even pre-COVID. It's a completely different game that we're playing right now with Memorial Hall.
No, I have to say you've done a great job with what you've had there. Because I've been around a little bit and I've seen it go, and we weren't really sure. It's a very mixed, conversation with public, private, and and everybody's, you ain't gonna make it work. And but I know the PGDC, Eddie Santos and company put a lot of money into that.
They did.
To get it to where it is today. So you've done a great job in the recreation department as well. So
thank you. Thank you. One of the areas that it does benefit us is that we did a complete restoration to the Hall of Flags this year, and it didn't cost the taxpayers any money. That was something that we were able to generate. A lot of our veterans programs, it comes out of our funds. We take care of that. We work a lot with the police. We have the police academy there quite a bit. We have some classes with the fire department. So it allows us to do more for the community at no additional costs. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Cohan?
So right now, there's a revolving fund that the revenues come. What's the balance of that revolving fund? What are you operating from?
That I don't have an exact number.
Okay.
I can get that for you, though. I can
Right.
go back for that.
Just interested in, obviously, there's been a lot of work put into the building over the last 25 years to get it to where it is today. It's in needed repair, especially its exterior. I think the priority here is making it tight to the weather so water can't get in the building. I mean, that's the greatest form of preservation that you can do to the building, is to stop the water getting in the building. But I was just curious about these other tiers that are options for us. I guess we just have to kind of look at those and take them one step at a time, because it's an enormous cost. But it's interesting to note how much money is coming in based on your activities, and how much is it to operate the facility currently right now.
Yeah.
Because I do see that, $1 a ticket sale would be a nice way of building a capital fund for the future for its repair. If we're going to make this huge investment in the building, we want to make sure that 10, 20 years from now, that there is a substantial capital fund to do these projects. So having that ticket dollar, but that's just not going to do the trick as much as looking at your total income for the building, and putting a percentage of that income away into a capital fund. So as you're operating from year 1, 2, 3, all the way up to 25 years, there's a certain percentage each year that is going into a fund that's dedicated for these capital improvements in the future. So we're not in a situation that we're in today where we're looking at trying to find the money to renovate the building. So I think that my only part of your presentation that I'd ask to add to is think about looking at the revolving fund, how much money's coming in per year, what you're operating from, and what you could afford to put away each year to join that ticket dollar sale concept.
Yeah, I completely agree. And just to let you know how we've managed it so far, this past last year, I believe it was last year, my entire salary and benefits comes out of the Memorial Hall revolving fund. It doesn't cost taxpayers anything. We've actually added 3 sound engineers who work part-time per show, and we have 2 event coordinators. Again, comes right out of our generated funds, doesn't cost the taxpayers anything. So my goal, my ultimate goal, is that we have a building that is self-sustaining, that doesn't cost the taxpayers any money, but brings people in to create tax revenue to help benefit the town. So
well, you've definitely shown that. You've proven that the building can derive a revenue to underwrite these costs that are incurring by yourself and others in other activities around the site. But now we need to, if we do make an investment of this magnitude, that we want to be able to create a revenue stream for the future for major improvements to the building when they come, in terms of roof and siding and windows and things of that nature.
Yeah.
So,
to talk about the dollar fee, if we were to have improvements where we were to able offer, say, the dream package for a client, we could literally have 2 to 3 shows a week
Right.
that sell between 12 to 1,400 seats. That's 12 to 1,400 per show. You're looking at probably $4,200 a week just for this revolving fund towards the building.
Right.
Multiply that, and probably 10 months a year, we're pretty busy. January and August are our slowest months.
We just have
That would
to
be-
look at the potential, the current revenue, the
Yeah.
potential revenue,
Yep.
and the investment we're making, and how we can build a rationale to residents of how we're going to pay for these improvements. Because the building is incredibly important. It was a building built out of the memorial of after the Great War, World War I,
Yes.
and since then has served our veterans multiple generations, time and time again. So we want to respect that commitment to memorializing the sacrifice that was given here in Plymouth by its residents. Also, it's a historical building. Now it's 100 years old. It's
next year.
Celebrating its 100th birthday.
Yeah.
And it's fitting that we start to look at its preservation. I do believe that the CPA fund is an eligible fund for the exterior historical preservation of the building in terms of the care that you have to take on the repointing of the building to make sure that you're doing it correctly in historically accurate windows in the cupola on top of the building and other features. I think that's an important aspect of this. It will be the historical preservation of the building and respecting the original purpose of the building. But the spirit also was about including all of the residents in the capability of the site. Yes, right now they're all paid, but there were a lot of events when I was younger that were not paid. They were free to the residents, and so that's something else we have to think about, making sure that we accommodate that in the plan of the use of the building.
Yes.
But thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, everyone.
Bill Coyle, just want to make one last point, and I thank you for your time. I know it's been a long presentation. Thank you, Joe, Sean, and Carl. One point I want to make is that all the numbers that were presented this evening by Sean, by DVBW, those are construction costs. So in every scenario, we would need an OPM and a design consultant. So it would probably be on top of those numbers would be an additional 15, potentially 20% greater once you hire the owner's project manager and design consultant. That number, the number that went to the CPC did include the OPM and the designer for the project, so that number did include that. So just wanted to make that point. But thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any other questions for the presenters? I will ask a perhaps final question, but these tiers that are listed, they're all, my understanding is they're all sequential tiers of work, right? None of them require that they be done contemporaneously, so we can chip away at this over time?
Correct. If the town chose to move forward with Tier 1A, we can move forward with 1A, and then 1B, and so on. So you can move forward in that direction, yes.
Okay. And I know you weren't here, Bill, and I wasn't here at the time, but it is disconcerting to see that we did a study on water intrusion in 2011 and then did nothing about it.
Correct.
For 14 years.
I think
because obviously that's 14 years of continuous water intrusion, so it's much worse now than it was in 2011. So I just hope I know we are making steps to get out ahead of these problems before they get a hold of us in other areas, but I just hope this is the last. This has come up over the last few years repeatedly, that we catch something that somebody, there's a problem there. We'll fix that later. So hopefully this is the last of that, but if it's not, hopefully we are near the end and we don't ever repeat those types of mistakes. Because I obviously, it's 14 years of inflation on these costs, but it's also 14 years of additional damage that we could have prevented. So I just felt it was important to make that comment.
Agreed, and I think we're moving in the right direction. I think at this point, once we determine what funding is available, and then if whether or not we need to go to town meeting to secure any additional funding, I think at a minimum, we have to move forward with repairing that building so there's no more water intrusion. And we have to
Yes.
seal the brick. It's amazing when you go in that building when it's raining, how quickly that water will go through that brick. It's like a sponge. And you
Yes.
can see the water flowing down the interior wall of the building. So there's no
Yes.
doubt we have to keep moving in that direction.
Okay, thank you, I appreciate
Thank you.
that. You're welcome. All right, so that concludes, well, for the moment, that concludes that. More to come soon. And brings us to the next agenda item, that being the FY '25 year in review by Mr. Brindisi.
All right, good evening, Derek Brindisi, Town Manager. Just wait a few minutes to get the slides up. So let's start by thanking the department heads that are here this evening. Although this is our annual review, it's in essence a review on the department's work over the course of the last 12 months. And I'll start by saying that no presentation that I'll make this evening will do justice to the work that the departments have exercised over this past fiscal year. In your packets that Jade has provided, not only has she provided this slide deck, but she has provided all the backup materials that the various departments have submitted in order to build this slide deck. So you'll see all the work that went into this, both the updates of the goals and priorities. You'll see in the packet the other work that was accomplished during the course of the year. As you know, many of the things that we want to do, sometimes they get sidetracked for other priorities that arise, and we have to pivot and then work on that. So you'll see that on your packet, and I'm sure any one of the department heads here today and who aren't here today would be more than happy to meet with you individually to answer any of those questions. So with that being said, missing a slide. Okay. So I'll just give a little bit of background. So what you'll see here, down in here, there was a bigger slide, so I don't know if you can see this, but the check mark represents what has been completed this past year. These like blue check marks are what is still in progress. Some of these initiatives take more than 12 months, and then you'll see down here these plus marks, you'll see here, are items that were added during the course of the year that the departments should certainly take credit for. So just a little bit of history. So back in 2022, when I arrived as town manager, there were a lot of conversations about transparency and really focusing in on goals. And so we instituted that the summer of '22, working first with the department heads on what their annual goals look like for their various departments and divisions. And then we brought that information forward to the Select Board in a workshop setting and brought that forward. The Select Board, as you all know, make additions, they make subtractions, they make modifications and edits to those presented draft goals. And so we started doing that in '22, and every year subsequently we then go ahead and review ourselves. And this is our review. This is our annual review. Did we accomplish what we said we were going to accomplish this past year? And so there's about a dozen slides, and I'm not going to read every one of these lines. That's with the presentation. This presentation will be posted online for those folks that are interested. You can also go online and look at last year's goals and the year before goals, and you can see a history of everything that's been accomplished in the last 3 years by going to the town website. So what I will do is I will just speak to the items that are underlined, just to try to highlight some of the work. And it's difficult to touch on every department, but again, they all have done amazing work, and they all deserve to be commended for the work over this past year, and really, working for the taxpayer in this community. So I'll start at the top. We have our fire chief here today, and I want to just talk about the wildfire protection plan, only because this was something that I think came out of a lot of what we were watching, not only nationally, because we hear about wildfires nationally, on the West Coast, but was really happening, to our northern neighbors in Canada. And so, as you know, we have a state forest. We have thousands and thousands of acres of wild lands here in town. And so, the chief took the initiative, had multiple community forums to develop a community wildfire protection plan. So it's still in progress. There's still a little bit more work to get done. But this is a great example of really watching what's contemporary, in the fire services, and really focusing in on and doing something that this community needs. And I believe, Chief, am I correct? This is the first wildfire protection program for Plymouth, right? So first in Plymouth, 400 plus years, first time we've had a wildfire protection plan, and as the chief pointed out, there's only been a couple even developed in the state. So that's one of the highlights, focusing on a safe and healthy community. And you'll see there's these various buckets. So the bucket I'm talking about right now is focusing on a safe and healthy community. And the other one I just want to highlight on this slide is to develop a park management plan. So what does that mean? So under the leadership of Commissioner Brady of Health and Human Services and our rec director, spent over 12 months convening multiple meetings with various stakeholders, various departments and divisions, to develop park management plans for every one of our beaches and ponds in which that we staff. So I can tell you, when I was the assistant town manager in my first 3 years as town manager, every summer we get complaints about Morton Park. We get complaints about Plymouth Beach. We get complaints about Whitehorse Beach. And so we really, although we would do things year after year and expecting different outcomes, but it's not until the park management plan came into place that we've actually started to see changes. So I know it's early in the summer season. We haven't had any complaints yet of Morton Park, and we just had one small hiccup on the first day at Plymouth Beach regarding parking, but things are moving extremely well. Every department knows exactly where they need to be and what their roles and responsibilities are to managing a coastal community during the summer, and so I'm very proud of that plan. We're happy to share this plan for those that are interested. We'll learn lessons from this plan during the course of this year, and we'll make those adjustments for next year.
Derek, can you just explain the little graphic symbols? I know there's a key in the bottom left, but I think based on my ability to see it on that TV, viewers at home may not be able to.
Sure. So the green check mark represents that the goal has been completed. Although we'll continue to have iterations of that, we've actually completed that. The blue, I call it half check mark, means that it's still in progress. So we're still working on that. It's not fully completed yet, but it should be within the next 12 months or so. And then you'll see on the next slide we have these green plus marks. Those are projects or programs that were added during the course of the year by the select board, or for whatever reason, there was an emerging issue that had to be addressed, and so we're just recognizing the work of our departments and pivoting to those emerging issues. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So I'm moving on to the next slide. So again, you'll see a number of other developments that have taken place on the slide. But the one I want to highlight on this slide comes out of the police department, and this is the implementation of the crime analysis and body camera program. And so this is interesting because I'm going to show you the crime analysis component. So the chief, about 18 months ago, brought forward this effort to develop a crime analysis unit and hire a civilian crime analyst, which started this past fall, Chief? December. So less than 6 months. And I can tell you, because they collect data, right? So police departments collect a lot of data. And so the idea behind the crime analysis unit is to use the data the police department's collecting, and then to use that data in such a way that it's informing our decisions. It's informing deployment of resources. It's identifying hotspots in our community which that we may need to suppress for any reason. And so just pull some data. The chief sent this to me today. This is the type of data that the command staff are using on a daily basis when they look at some of the things that are happening in our community. So this heat map over here just represents motor vehicle accidents and traffic stops. And so that'll inform their traffic division and maybe where they need to set up speed traps, for example. This one here is just the top 5 calls, and that's a little small for me, so I'm going to use my computer myself. So the top 5 calls for service last week, medical and mental well-being, about 85% were there. And then the 911 accidental calls were about 38%, and so on and so forth. So again, using data to drive our decision-making. And then the slide here at the bottom just represents a number of motor vehicle accidents over the course of the last, about 4.5 months. And so again, you can see that we had a spike here in May. Maybe there was something occurring during that period of time that the police department need to pay special attention to. So again, another goal the chief set back about 2 years ago, and so it's finally come to fruition. And I can tell you, speaking to other police officers, not even asking the question about what this unit has done for them, they all speak glowingly about the information that they receive and how it's really helped them as police officers. So moving on to long-term financial planning. So again, this is mostly led by our finance director, Lynn Barrett. I'm going to speak to these because these are all still in progress. So, finances never end. So this issue around supplemental billing, we're still working on this. We have a new director of assessing that started in January. But this is something that it's really important to the town. We predict that potentially if we were to implement a supplemental billing program, we could generate anywhere from $700,000 to $900,000 per year. So I just wanted to bring that up because it's something that we continue to work on. It's on our front burner as far as finances, and it's something certainly we're working with some select board members, the finance director and the director of assessing on this moving forward in FY26. Really important that we look at this to determine whether or not it can make a positive impact in this community. And then the next one is the financial forecasting model. So everything we do revolves around our ability to afford facilities, capital improvements, personnel, so on and so forth. So years ago, the finance director had worked on a financial forecasting model. We've tried to update. This is the old model here, so I'm just using it as an example of what something would look like. Looking at your expenses, looking at your revenue sheets, and trying to predict that over a course of time so we can start making financial decisions, not in the present, but in the future as well. So Lynn Barrett, finance director, has informed me that the financial forecasting model will be ready in August. It's her intention to meet with the select board, conduct a presentation, which is timely right before we start heading into budget season. So again, not totally complete, but we're at the 3-yard line on our 5-year forecasting model. Again, we hope to present in sometime this August. So to communicate and engage with the public, this is something that it's always been on our radar. We hired last year Casey Kennedy, our communications coordinator, and some of the things that she's been able to work on in her first year, published the quarterly magazine on the move. So that comes out, again, every quarter. The next one will come out on July 1st of next week. So that's something that I think has been extremely popular, especially amongst the folks that go to the Cal. We bring those there. We try to inform the community on the things that are happening throughout the community, especially with our various departments and divisions. This Week in Plymouth is something we started back in 2022, but Casey's taken that to the next level. So now she does a show called This Week in Plymouth on the Road, where she actually goes to various departments and divisions. She interviews them. She's done presentations with the police department, presentations with the DPW around water. Has recently done one with our archivist, Connor Anderson, just showing about all the different work that goes into operating a municipal services. And then This Week in Plymouth Live. So This Week in Plymouth Live, we've only done a few of them, and it's really focused in on issues that are like emerging issues. So the first one we had done was around bird flu. We had the opportunity to go live Casey interviewed Karen Keno, a public health director, and they talked about bird flu, and they allowed residents to call in and ask questions, so they have this face-to-face interaction with town staff and have their questions answered immediately. So those are some of the highlights of trying to reach out and engage people at different levels. And I do want to bring up the conducting the public outreach, because I think this was really important. And I have some data here that I'd like to share with the board. So when we talk about engaging the community, quite frankly, I don't, and again, I haven't been here that long, but I don't know of a community, in my experience in 25 years, that has engaged their residents at this level in my 25 years working in local government. The master planning process, they've already had over 1,000 responses during their process over the past 12 months. They've engaged the community at 13 different public forums. The housing production plan, they've had 799 responses. Open space plan, 459 responses in a public forum. The downtown resiliency project, 6 public forums, and they met with 1,300 students on this. The whole tech master planning process, 3,800 responses, 4 public forums. The Forgesfield and Hedgesfield master planning process, they've already held 3 public forums, and that's still ongoing. The wildfire planning that I mentioned earlier, they've held 1 public forum. The police community impact program is where we send a police officer to every one of our village steering committee meetings. They've had over 60. They've attended over 60 meetings. And then the health assessment, which just kicked off recently, has a series of charrettes and other community forums that they plan on holding. The point is, we are engaging, we are talking to the community at every level, at every time possible. Can we do more? We can always do more. But we are really trying to think about what do the community want and have the community help drive our decision-making in all of these master planning processes moving forward. And then I just want to highlight the one at the bottom here. This is the Senior Tax Credit Program. This is the program, I don't know if you remember, that we did the lottery. We did the live lottery, and that was in response where we had seniors calling the Human Resources Department saying, how come the same people get picked in the Senior Tax Credit Lottery year after year? And so, because in the past, there was a lottery, but it was done, upstairs on the 4th floor. And so nobody really knew what was happening. So we said, we want to be transparent. We want folks to know what we're doing. So we're going to do a live lottery on television at a select board meeting. It was fun, right, Mr. Kretzel? So it was great. I wanted to bring that up because this is us hearing complaints, hearing concerns, and us trying to be more transparent in the work that we do. So this is the economic development. We have our planning director here today. So the one I'm going to highlight on this slide is really the focus on developing a master plan for the whole tech property. We all hope someday that they do sell the property, the 1,500 acres or thereabouts, to the town. And so during the pilot negotiations, as you remember, we built into the pilot negotiations that we required Holtec to work with us and build a master plan. So we know exactly what we're going to do with every acre of that parcel of land when it comes for sale. Oftentimes what happens, and we'll pick on 46 Sandwich Road, my first year here, 46 Sandwich Road comes up for sale, and then everybody's scrambling around saying, what are we going to do with it? Is there going to be a fire station? Is there going to be a police station? Is there going to be a cemetery? And so part of the reason why that got defeated is because we didn't have a plan for 46 Sandwich Road. So the whole tech property, we have a plan. We're hoping it to be completed the end of this summer. A lot of credit goes to Lee Hartman and Steve Cole, who wrote a grant for $350,000 to the federal government in order to bring that planning process to fruition. And sure, again, we'll stay on the economic development piece. I'll defer to the select board, especially Mr. Canty and Mr. Golden and planning board member Steve Bulletin, who really moved forward with the home rule petition. We met with the governor a couple of weeks ago, advocated for this home rule petition to be approved at the state level so we can bring it back for a final vote. So again, that's a big accomplishment that we've been able to get it, at least at the State House at this point. And then, again, since we're talking 40Bs this evening, I thought it was important to talk about that. Mr. Hartman has informed me that the town had never negotiated a friendly 40B agreement, development agreement, until the Claremont agreement. So again, that's a 300-unit 40B project that's going to take place up at Colony Place. But why that was so important to us is because Claremont is going to build us a $4 million water booster station. We know that we have a severe water deficit in West Plymouth, and part of these negotiations brings to the town a $4 million booster station that the residents in West Plymouth will benefit from. So to improve town infrastructure, so I think this is really important. When I came here in 2022, I remember a moratorium was placed on the sale of burial lots. Quite frankly, that should never happen. We should always have a place to bury our residents. It's a requirement under the statute. And I remember that moratorium being placed, but here we are 3 years later. The design of the Route 80 cemetery has been completed. It's going to go to bid this summer, and hopefully construction will start in the fall, Bill. So again, that is a major accomplishment. Hopefully within a year from now, we can start selling burial plots for all of our residents once again. And then continue the progressive roadway program. We put a check next to that, not because it's complete. We know we will continue to work on it. But just this past year, you remember the presentation by Mr. Coyle. We're proposing 40 miles of roads to be completed in this summer construction season. And so if we look at the last 4 years, we are projecting to have completed 88 miles of roads. And if we look at that number compared to the number of accepted roads of 244 accepted roads, that means in the last 3.5 years, we will have completed 36% of all of our accepted roads. I don't know, Bill, but I don't know of another community that could say that. 36% of all of our accepted roads will be resurfaced by the end of this year. So that's an accomplishment not only to the DPW, that's an accomplishment to the Select Board, to the Finance Committee, and to town meeting for supporting that priority, because that's a great example of everyone come together and saying roads are the priority. We have to fund it, we have to build it, we have to get it done. Again, to improve town infrastructure. So again, back in 2018, 2019, a lot of conversations around the poor conditions of our fire station. We just talked about the poor conditions in Memorial Hall. We've learned, I hope, we've learned those lessons. We've just completed this year, the Minute Village Fire Station is now complete. Hoping to cut a ribbon on that in July, Chief? July-ish, August? We'll pick a day when it's not 100 degrees. How about that?
Yeah. Good luck.
So again, and we'll be entering a design phase for the Bourne Road Fire Station very soon as well. And I just want to bring to everyone's attention, although this wasn't a priority, to renovate the old Harbor Master building. That's been completed using ARPA funds. Now we can put that building back on the tax rolls. It looks great. It was actually highlighted in the movie about Anthony Bourdain a couple weeks ago. So they used images of that new Harbor Master building. So again, that's back on the tax rolls. It looks great. So it's really going to be a cornerstone in the future down there on the waterfront. So protect the environment. Moving on to this bucket. Record all the intel and conservation by Open Space Committee. This isn't complete yet. We do now have funding. There's 550 parcels that were voted at previous town meetings to be moved to conservation. So here we are. We've got the funding, working with the planning department. We plan on completing that hopefully in the next 6 months. The conservation restriction has already been placed on the 130 acres that was part of the sale of the 71 Hedges Pond Road property. So we continue to move forward to make sure that all the votes that were taken at town meeting years ago will be completed. And then the completion of the dredging of Jenny Pond and the installation of new footbridge. If you haven't been there, I know I showed images last week, but that is a $18 million project, and so we're just nearing the completion of phase 1. We'll continue to move down towards Brewster Garden over the next couple of phases. So again, kudos to David Gould and his team for moving that multi-million-dollar project forward. And then the completion of the engineering design work for the downtown resiliency project. So again, that's being headed by the Department of Energy and the Environment. Mike Hale's taken the lead on this project. We have completed the design work. We've submitted for an MVP grant, a multi-million-dollar MVP grant. Assuming we get that grant and assuming we get a supplemental funding at the fall town meeting, we plan on breaking ground on Court Street this December. Again, this project not only focus on climate resiliency, but it's focused on pedestrian safety and the aesthetics of the downtown area. We're hoping to plant, through this project, 75 trees on Court Street, amongst other things. And then, I know, again, I mentioned this last week, but just because energy costs have been a major conversation since February here in Massachusetts, we just signed a residential aggregation program last week. That'll bring savings of, on average, $100 per household starting in October. And then for those that are that meet other income qualifications, this new program will bring savings of over $200 per household for those individuals as well. So strengthen the town's workforce. This is our human resources department. The community doesn't really see the work that they're doing, but they are doing a lot of work around focusing on our employees in a lot of different fronts, to employee engagement, to employee wellness, and things of that nature. But recruitment and retention strategies. So we all know our goal to recruit and retain police officers through civil service. We'll continue to work on that. But they've done other things. So they've had open house for trying to recruit DPW employees, and that has bear fruit. We're starting to see a lot of our positions at DPW get filled up. I remember just a year ago, if you went on the fourth floor, you would probably see at least 30 vacancies. I think we're down to about 7 or 8 vacancies now. So a lot of work is being done on human resources around recruiting and retaining our employees. And then, the HR department received a grant to conduct a classification and compensation study. The last time this was done was in 2017, so here we are 8 years later conducting the study. It's not complete yet. Probably by the end of the year it will be complete. But that's really going to drive compensation for our employees to make sure we're competitive in the South Shore and also competitive amongst the communities that are pulling our employees. So again, there's not a lot of glamour behind that, but it's really important because the employees are the engine behind the work that we do. So efficiencies. So since 22, we've gone through multiple reorganizations. Harbor Masters did the police department, created Department of Energy and the Environment, created Health and Human Services Department, moved public health under Health and Human Services, animal control under Health and Human Services. So this past year, we looked across the spectrum of all of our different programs, and we reorganized the licensing agent, which was historically under the Select Board's office, under inspectional services. All of our licenses and permits are all under one roof in inspectional services. That includes fire, building, electrical, alcohol, and all those permits. So again, trying to be more efficient with our staff, trying to make it easier for our clients to do work here in town. And then I'll just mention the onboarding process. I won't talk too much about that. Jade at some point will do a presentation on the onboard program around boards and committees, so I won't steal her thunder, and I'll just keep it like that for now. The complaint, one of the goals was to continue to streamline the C-Click Fix program, which we started again 2.5 years ago. This past year alone, we had 1,359 concerns that were reported. Can anybody guess what the top concern was? Potholes. Yeah. So potholes was definitely leading the league on the number of complaints. So again, a lot of work because of this program, a lot more work gets sent to the DPW. But again, trying to be reactive, trying to be responsive to our residents' needs, what they're seeing day in and day out. And then our town clerk is here, so we can't forget consolidation of polling locations. We went from 14 locations, Mr. Town Clerk, down to 5 locations. So, again, talking about efficiencies in government, I think it went extremely well. We had more people vote in the local election this past year than in previous local elections. So, again, kudos to the town clerk's office for making that happen. So this is my last slide. When I started here in 22, everything was, not everything, there were a lot of things that were paper-based. We were signing our payroll warrants that were paper-based. A lot of the things that we were doing, all our human resources were paper-based. So over time, we've been starting to make everything electronic. So we continue to do that, but I want to bring it up because, we need to be more sound in using technology. We need to automate things as much as we can. I can sign payroll using my smartphone now. I can sign human resources forms with my smartphone, and it all gets routed amongst all the various departments. So again, trying to be more efficient in how we use our time. We're going to more electronic programs versus paper-based, and we can store it all in the cloud too, which is even better. And then I will just end with one of the goals that continues to be front and center. It was a goal that was in 22, 23, 24, and I'm sure it's going to be a goal in 25, but it's to look at all of our select board policies, our town bylaws, and to make sure that they've been updated. If they're not updated, maybe they are no longer necessary. Let's rescind them. So a lot of kudos to Connor Anderson, Jade, all the different departments that continue to look at the things that are in their world. Last year, we updated 6 bylaws. We updated 9 select board policies, instituted 5 new policies, and rescinded 15 policies. So, the whole goal is, in the next couple of years, that every policy or bylaw, has been reviewed within the last 5 years. So again, trying to be more 21st century in how we deliver municipal services. We have bylaws that Connor Anderson presented, sorry, not bylaws, policies that Connor Anderson presented that go back to the 70s. We had ones that we looked at, from shellfishing going back to the 80s. So again, why we're not looking at these on more of a regular basis is beyond me. But again, we'll continue to do that in years moving forward. So I just want to end here, thank all the department heads. Certainly division heads and frontline staff, they're all a part of this team that we continue to not make changes. So, we've changed how we use that terminology. We no longer make changes, we make improvements. But I thank all the different department heads, Silvio and Jade and everybody else, Casey who's not here, for the work that they do. And so please take a look at the packets that you receive, because I only scratched the surface of everything that took place the past 12 months. And so when you read that, I spent time over the weekend preparing for tonight's discussion, but reading everything that was submitted to me by the department heads, and I was blown away by the work that they were able to accomplish. So I'm proud to be on their team and to help doing what I can as a town manager. And I want to just recognize Dr. Christopher Campbell and his team. Although they're not a part of the town technically, we've enjoyed a really close partnership with the school department, school superintendent over the past, I would say, 18 months. We're really thinking about consolidation, how we can work together. We talk on a regular basis, what's happening in the school department, what's happening on the town side. So we're always having a joint message. So, again, thank you to the school department for their support and being a strong partner moving forward. So pending any questions, that's all I have for this presentation.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Brindisi, Mr. Golden?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't have any questions, Derek. I just want to say it's really humbling to see the volume of work that takes place emanating from this building. I want to echo your thanks to the great staff that we have, but I also want to add thanks to you as the sort of commander in this building. Without you, a lot of this stuff wouldn't get done, so thank you as well.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Ms. Iaquinta?
Yeah, I just want to add to what David said. Derek, thank you so much. In the short period of time that I've been on the board, I've been so incredibly impressed by everyone that I've met. Everyone has just been so welcoming and open and really excited to share what they're all doing. And this report just illustrates that in spades. I'm really proud to be part of this team. Thank you.
Thank you. They do great work.
Anyone else? If no one else, I will add to that the work that is done and has been done over the last 2 years since I've been on the board and we've done these reviews has been very impressive. I'm sure next year when the work we're about to engage in will be equally, if not more so. But that work is not 5 members of the select board or a town manager, assistant town manager, the 4th floor. It's all the department heads, but it's also whether you are a department head or division head, or whether you are the most junior member of the town department that you work in. It is the day in and day out work of all of our employees of all levels, delivering services and doing a lot of the grunt work. And some of those goals, particularly those pluses, were things that even we didn't think of, that department heads, division heads, or even employees thought of to improve the operations of our community. And so that doesn't always get noticed, and it may not feel like if you are one of the more junior employees that your contribution is recognized, but I certainly recognize it, and I think everyone contributes in a meaningful way to the end result. So it's not our accomplishment as a board, but it's our accomplishment as an organization in its entirety. So, thank you. All right. Pending any other questions, we can move forward. Mr. Cohen?
Just to add to all my other board members and their observations, and they're quite accurate on the amount of work that the town puts into these endeavors. But I also wanted to take a minute and just recognize all the different committees and boards. As I go through your presentation, there's an enormous amount of volunteers in this town that are working on committees and boards and helping different departments, whether they're elected or appointed. So I just wanted to note that when these committees and boards work together with staff and departments, we can make great progress as shown in this presentation. So thank you.
Thank you. All right. That brings us to our next agenda item, that being FY26 Master Calendar Informational Update. Thank you very much.
So while Jade loads this, I'll just give you a little bit of background. So this master calendar, we started developing, I want to say this is the 3rd year. In fact, we memorialized this calendar in the select board policy around submitting warrant articles. And so we have this policy that describes how to submit a warrant article, when the deadlines are, and what is required to submit an article. And in this policy, it references the master calendar. It's not shown.
Maybe we can make a goal for FY26 to fix whatever's been happening tonight.
Make sure the computer works. So again, so I'll speak to the calendar itself. What you'll see in this calendar, and again, we don't normally present this, but so in the select board policy, it states that this master calendar needs to be published by June 1st. So we're a little bit late, but there's a reason why we're a little bit late, and it's because of what I want to talk to the select board about this evening. There we go. Oof, that's going to be tough to read. So keep going. Maybe we could just keep blowing it up. And then we'll just look at each section individually. You can't blow it up anymore?
If you go back and then you can zoom in and then we can scroll down. So, there you go.
Keep going. Keep going.
All right.
Okay, so.
Better.
So the whole point of this master calendar is so that we can inform the community, our board and committee members, our town meeting members, A&F, anyone who's interested in town business. This calendar outlines all the different milestones and dates that are really important. It can't cover them all, but we try to cover as many as possible. So you'll see in this calendar, it talks about right out of the gate, when the fall town meeting warrant will open. It describes what date the warrant will close, and then it also describes when the select board will be reviewing articles, when A&F will be reviewing articles, and then ultimately when we execute the warrant, and then it goes to print. Can you scroll down a little bit, Jade? So that's the fall. And then, so that's the pinkish area toward the top, and then the blue area is honed in on the process for the spring annual warrant. When it opens, anything in green has to do with the budget, green for money, budget. Again, going back to the annual warrant, you see when it opens, when it closes, when the select board and A&F will start reviewing articles. But what you won't see in this calendar, which you would have seen in last year's calendar, and which you would have seen in a calendar 20 years ago if they created one, is the special town meeting warrant process. So historically, the town made a decision that they had to have 2 warrants at the annual town meeting. They wanted to have an annual town meeting warrant, and they wanted to have a special town meeting warrant. So that requires us to go through the same process twice. There's no requirement to have a special town meeting warrant. There's none requirement at all. In fact, you only call a special town meeting in off calendar when something triggers it. Maybe you want to buy a piece of land that was in Chapter 61, so you're going to have to call a special town meeting, for example. But you don't need to have a special town meeting warrant at an annual town meeting. In fact, you can have all your articles, which normally would have been in a special town meeting, in the annual town meeting warrant. So what I'm bringing to the board's attention today is that this year we are proposing not to have a special town meeting warrant and just have an annual town meeting warrant. So the warrant will open in October. It will close December 17th. And then from that point on, we'll issue the warrant, the draft warrant, and we'll start going through our process. So before we made this proposal, town clerk, Jade, assistant town manager, town council, we've reviewed the bylaws and the charters to make sure that we were being consistent with how the bylaws and charter read. And so there's nothing that we read, and town council agrees, nothing in any one of those documents requires to have a special town meeting. Then we reviewed prior special town meeting warrants, which, could range anywhere from 10 to 15 articles. And the vast majority of them, those articles were submitted by departments. The vast majority of them. So we just got to change a little behavior with our departments to make sure that they have to forecast a little bit further and ensure that they get all of their articles in by December 18th, not wait until January to say, oh, geez, I want to add an article because I want to buy this piece of land or I want to do something. All of that stuff can be predicted well ahead of time. And that's the whole purpose of this calendar. So you shouldn't start preparing your articles the day the warrant opens. You should be preparing your articles throughout the 12 months. This is a cyclical event. You do not ever stop preparing your articles. You prepare them during the course of the year. The opening period is just your opportunity to submit them. That's the only thing you should be doing at that period. So if we give folks a 12 months advance notice, then they have that runway to know when they have to prepare their articles, when they need to submit their articles. So I don't envision a problem with our department heads meeting the December 18th requirement in order to submit all their articles for the annual town meeting. So that's the first that I want you to contemplate. because then we'll publish this. The other item I want to bring to your attention is the actual annual town meeting in April. It's scheduled for April, I can't read that far. 4th. April 4th. So April 4th this coming year is Easter. Friday is Good Friday, so school is closed on Good Friday. So we'll have to, work around school closure for the setup. But the way the bylaw reads is that only town meeting can reschedule the date of the April town meeting. Select board, oddly, can reschedule the date of the October town meeting, but not of April. So I bring this to your attention because if you're thinking we shouldn't require a town meeting the day before Easter, then what I would propose is that we have an article at the October town meeting seeking authorization from town meeting to move the spring town meeting to the following Saturday, which would be April 11th. So those are the two things I have before you. Happy to answer any questions. Hope I didn't confuse you.
Okay. Any questions? Mr. Callahan?
So I think the April 11th idea and an article at fall town meeting would be a good idea. We often encounter this with the language of our bylaw, putting us in this part of spring and running into the holidays, whether it's Passover or Easter. The other thing that I would think of is my understanding is the special town meetings that we had in the spring. They were to address expenditures that we had to deal with before July 1st. So you have July 1st. We're there at our April town meeting, yes, preparing our budget that really doesn't really kick in until July 1st.
That's right.
So we had a special there, and we would put on there things like, well, it looks like snow plowing this year took too much money. That's so right. I did notice that it was growing, the special. It seemed to be taking on a life of its own. Mm-hmm. So I think you're trying to tackle that. But how will we address those financial issues that we might have to expend money before the fiscal year begins on July 1st?
Yep. So that's a great question. So a couple of things. So when Baker enacted the Municipal Modernization Act, during his term as governor, he gave the ability for cities, or towns, I should say, to do year-end transfers between the Finance Committee and the Select Board. So that's new as of, say, 10 years ago-ish. 10 years ago, Kevin, somewhere in that ballpark? So we have the ability to do year-end transfers amongst the Select Board with the approval of the Select Board, and you'll see on July 8th, you'll see the year-end transfers. So we can move money department to department already because of the Municipal Modernization Act. Anything that we can't do transfers from, say we had to raise and appropriate, so your point about snow and ice deficit, we had to raise and appropriate, we didn't have the money to do a transfer from department to department, we would have an article that specifically called out that fiscal year. So, using this past April of 25, we say we wanted to raise and appropriate a sum of $1 million to cover the snow and ice deficit, we would write in the article fiscal 2025. So it's very clear to the town meeting members what they're voting on. They're voting on the sitting fiscal year. So we don't have to have a special town meeting warrant to vote on articles within that budget cycle. We just have to be very explicit on what budget cycle they're voting on.
It would probably be helpful if you group them, too. If it does happen that they're grouped in those articles, that you would get a grouping of the fiscal year you weren't dealing. They weren't scattered on the water.
Sure.
Kind of grouped it together to make it easy for people.
No, that's great. That's great advice. Yeah.
Yes. And one of the things we had historically, for no discernible reason, we had been preserving numbers in different warrants for different types of articles, including if none of those articles existed, we would just leave that article number blank on the warrant. We've eliminated that, but now what we try and do is group them in a way that makes sense, as opposed to just Article 9 is always CPC in the spring or something like that. You just didn't make sense to do it that way. That's correct. That was the fall, right? But it didn't. Now we can group them in a way that makes sense for what the warrant is that you're going to be reading that day. Because maybe at certain points having it in having Article 8 be capital was a comfort for some, but I think as things have progressed, it makes more sense to just do it in a more orderly fashion for the meeting that you're actually at.
Yeah, I think it all makes sense to look at that. I mean, we do know that we have annual reoccurring articles that we can keep there, right? But if the old Article 1s, which are on compensation classification, it's no longer necessary. Right. So we've eliminated that and started a new Article 1 moving forward.
Right. Yeah, there were years in a row where there'd be no Article 1, but we were keeping Article 1 reserved in case something popped up.
Right.
Yes. It's odd.
So just your questions make me think back about, we talk about legislative oversight, looking at articles that passed town meeting, and then looking at the past. We always end up kind of scrambling, trying to figure out where was that article, what year it was, where did it come. The reason that the CPA articles were the 9 in the fall, because if you heard the word, if you saw it as Article 9A or B or C, you'd know that it was a fall town meeting. Mm-hmm. That was the intention, to help people find an article if they start to go to research it to see what town meeting had happened, and you know where to go, because the annual report, when you pick up the annual report and you open it up, it's a pretty cumbersome document where you're seeing different town meeting warrants, different town meeting articles, and different town meeting motions. So when you're trying to find something, it gets very, very complicated. And if you can identify a reoccurring entity that's always putting articles before town meeting, to give it a specific number, so it at least gives you a starting point when you're trying to do that research. Is that what you were thinking, that the grouping isn't a good idea, or always reserving? So what was that?
Well, because we would have articles that wouldn't appear, and then we'd have. So now, the other thing was you couldn't tell how long a town meeting really was going to be, because with all the CPC articles, for example, just because it came to mind first, in the fall being 9s. Yeah. It wasn't Article 9, then the next CPC is 10. It was Article 9A through D or A through G or whatever. Yeah. So then it's also harder, because town meeting goes for as long as town meeting wants to stick around. But it's hard for them to gauge where they are, because there's 12 articles, but 4 of them have 6 different subsets. So it's... And particularly where we did lose a quorum at one point at a recent town meeting, that way, if they're numbered, if there's no sub-numbers, and they all are a whole number, it's easier to gauge where you are in the day, on the day.
So what I was trying to accomplish, like the CPA articles on the fall were 9A through B, C, and D. Right. And the spring would have been 16, A, B, C, or D. Right. Your idea, just so I can get it, understand it, is that we should just have articles numbers. Correct. Because it helps you look at that time and date of that town meeting to understand how long it might take. So
if CPC had 4 articles instead of 9A through D, it would be 9, 10, 11, 12.
Yeah. But I still think it's a good idea. I understand your point. But I do think it's a good idea when you have a reoccurring entity that's bringing up articles into each town meeting, that it might, and it's one of a point of great interest, that sometimes, the 9A, B, C, or D, you could just deduce that 9A is going to take a certain amount of time, 9B is going to take a certain amount of time, whether it was 9, Article 9 or Article 10. So I understand what you're trying to simplify it so you can look at it and see. But I do think that it was a policy that we followed for nearly 20 years, so that you could look at an article and see that it was 16, you knew that it was spring. If you saw it as a 9, you knew it as fall. I don't know, it's just something to, I understand your point, it's well taken, but I do see the benefit of having an article that was subdividable for a group that was putting articles for every town meeting. It was very rare that they didn't. I think it was my 1 in 20 years. So
Yes.
yeah. So just something to think about.
Yes. Other questions or comments on the master calendar or either of the two specific highlighted items? Well, I think it makes a lot of sense what you're proposing. I think I have noticed over the last several years that most of the special was town departments. And also for petitioned articles, my understanding is an annual, which both the fall and spring are annuals, or there is an annual in the spring. To get a petitioned article on an annual is 10 signatures, and to get a petitioned article on the special is 100. So by eliminating the standing special, you're not making it harder for petitioned articles to come forward. It's actually, you're retaining the easier option. So I think that's a highlightable benefit as well. So, and I know it will make the process for the FinCom in the spring, which was very extended, significantly easier. And that's an all-volunteer committee that does a lot of work. So I think that would be a benefit as well. Any other thoughts? All right. Well, I think people seem to be in favor of the ideas, so we can carry forward.
So we will go ahead and we'll publish this master calendar as presented this evening. We'll send it to all the board and committee members, our town meeting members, so everybody's well aware of the milestones for the next 12 months.
All right. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Golden?
And you'll include an article in the fall town meeting about April 4th to the 11th.
Sylvia's already written it.
Excellent.
Yeah. And we'll have to vote on that one later anyways, but yeah. Look forward to that. People can debate the merits of Easter. All right. So that brings us into our next item, which is public comment. Do we have anyone in the room that wishes to give public comment? Yes, please come to the podium, identify yourself, and you will have 3 minutes in which to speak.
Good evening. Kate Sakarik, 26 Bradford Street. I'm going to, let me just preface this by saying I'm going to ask you a question, but I don't expect you to answer it. A couple of weeks ago, you mentioned that, Mr. Chair, that you and the Vice Chair and I believe the Town Manager had gotten the chance to go to the State House and talk with the Governor. I was wondering if there was anything in that meeting that you were going to be, talking to the public about, or if there was anything that we could find out about that. It seems like that was probably a pretty rare opportunity, I guess, to go up, and I don't know if you requested it or if we were invited as a town, but I just wondered if there was anything that you could, at some point, or maybe in the town manager's report, share with the community as to what was discussed. I know that, when Mr. Hartman was talking about housing, you just said, they have a track record of not listening to us. So I was just wondering, did you talk about housing? Did you talk about, what were the highlights? Or can you share anything like that or anything like that? And like I said, I don't expect an answer. I just was curious because it seemed like kind of a big deal, that we were invited or you were asked to be heard. So, yeah, that's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else in the room? Anyone online? We have a digital hand raised. Betty Cavaco. You want to unmute yourself?
I sure do. Can you hear me?
We can.
Oh, wonderful. Excuse my voice. I guess allergies is getting the best of me. But I wanted to address the board and have them possibly reconsider putting a working group together for down here at White Horse Beach. Today was a pretty busy day, lots of cars with no stickers. People are now posting on social media that, there's nobody enforcing the sticker program on Tuesday and Wednesday. And although I was not in agreement to abandon the White Horse Beach Parking Committee, I still think the White Horse Beach District needs some oversight and possibly, one-person liaisons and not with the town getting inundated with phone calls and text messages. Today, I literally spoke with 6 people about the parking, and I know that they weren't there. They don't realize that the PD takes over for that company that does the ticketing down here, but we don't really want to go any further back than we've been. It took us well over a decade to put this program together, and I just think that it needs, we need to form another group that will give oversight and would be a liaison to the town.
Okay, thank you. Do we have anyone else online for public comment? Okay, that brings us into the town manager's report. Mr. Brindisi?
Sure. So I'm going to keep my comments brief this evening. I mentioned it earlier, but just so folks are on alert, next week, Casey Kennedy will release the 4th quarterly magazine. So that'll go out for those individuals who subscribe to the quarterly magazine via the town's online website. And then we typically print about 250 hard copies that we have some here at Town Hall, the library, and at the Cal. So look out for the quarterly magazine next week. A lot of good information there. I want to let the board know that the last union, OPEIU, has approved a 3-year contract. So we'll sign that MOA this week. We'll bring to the board, hopefully on the July 8th, the final ratification. So congratulations to Mr. Janeo and Jackie Gurney, our HR director, for negotiating what I think was a reasonable and a fair deal for both sides. So again, now all contracts have been negotiated and are complete for this round of successor negotiations. And then I'm just going to do a quick little roads update because we're getting lots of phone calls regarding roads. Today, because I know we've been a lot of phone calls regarding the construction projects that are taking place in the White Horse Road area. So you can go to our website. We specifically did a posting today of all the different road work that's taking place down off of Taylor Ave, off of White Horse Road, Priscilla Beach Road, specifically those projects that are taking place down there. And as we mentioned in the past, Lawrence Lynch started the intersection at Halfway Pond and Long Pond Road yesterday. So that work's going to continue all summer. We'll continue to monitor it, answer questions as they arise. Happy to talk to residents if they are seeing something that they believe needs to be adjusted. So again, we'll continue to work on that. And concurrently, what's happening in that same neighborhood, again, it's the Justine Road neighborhood that consists of 12 streets and 5 miles of roads that we're hoping will be completed early next week, assuming we get good weather. That those neighborhoods will be completed next week, and so then that whole area will just be focused then on the Halfway Pond, Long Pond Road intersection. So folks who are interested in learning whether or not their road will be part of the construction schedule this summer, please, as I mentioned in previous updates, go to the town website under engineering, and then you'll see a link for construction projects. And there you'll find all the roads that are listed, all 40 roads that are listed in this year's construction schedule. So that's all I have for this evening for updates.
Thank you, Mr. Brindisi. Any questions for Mr. Brindisi from board members? All right. Thank you. That brings us into select board discussion. Do we have any new business? Ms. Iaquinto?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a question for Mr. Brindisi, and I also have a comment on a separate topic. But I wanted to bring up the challenges and issues that we've been having with e-bikes, or I guess it's more the definitions, I guess, are morphing as we speak. But I guess they're e-dirt bikes is what we have without the pedals. So those are the vehicles that are causing so many problems. And since I've been on the board, I've gotten more calls of concern from residents on that one topic than I have on any other issue. And just with the recent handful of very serious accidents that we've had, I was wondering if there's anything that the town can do to help either with education or regulation. I know that there's some work being done at the state level, but I'm not sure that it's going to come fast enough to solve the problems that we're having right now with pedestrians and drivers concerned about their safety. Not only the safety of themselves, but the safety of the young people that are riding these bikes. I spent an hour today on the phone with the grandmother of one of the teens that was injured in the May 30th accident, and she's extremely concerned about what else could potentially happen. They were lucky in that case, but what else could potentially happen over the course of the summer? So is there anything at all that the town is able to do?
That's a great question. So we, and I say we, the police chief, myself, and others have the same level of concern. When this was brought to our attention about a month ago, when we had that first caller about what was going on over at the Seaside Trail, it started us to conduct an investigation to try to understand the severity of the issue. And what we learned was that there's a growing trend of these types of accidents. Just this past weekend, we had a very traumatic event where the child was injured and has to be hospitalized. So, and this is only mid-June. So the summer season's just beginning. We are looking at things that we can do both at a policy level. We're trying to determine whether or not we can declare a public safety emergency and try some type of prohibition until we can figure out a long-term solution. So I'm working with town council on that. She's researching that. She's reached out to other municipalities, other law firms to determine where we can make some changes. But I can tell you the immediate step, and this came directly from the chief, and I wish he was still here. They are going to start out. They're going to start a initiative where they're going to get out in the community with police officers, and they're going to seek out these individuals that are using these bikes in an improper manner, right? So who are riding on the roads erratically, who are on the sidewalks and they shouldn't be on the sidewalks, who are going speeds that are beyond what these e-bikes are regulated at. So from what I've been told, these e-bikes can only get up to 20, 25 miles per hour unless they're modified. And a lot of these bikes are being modified. They're getting up to 40, 45 miles per hour. So the police chief is hearing the concerns from the community loud and clear, and his initial step is to get out there with his police officers and start to try to control behavior first. They issued a citation last week, I think about $3,000 to one rider. So hoping that that'll change some behavior in the short term. In the long term, again, working with town council on what we can do for some policy changes, hopefully at this level, so we don't have to wait till fall town meeting. But even if we can implement something on the short term at the select board level, then prepare an article in the fall if it points in that direction. We don't know if we can do that just yet, but that's part of the research.
That's great. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. And with that, I know that it presents some unique challenges. I think some of that, realistically, some of our ability to control those on our streets is dependent on what is happening in neighboring communities too, because people that live in Kingston or Carver can just drive over the line with their bike, safe or unsafe. So that might be something too that we can work with our state delegation on in terms of trying to find a wider solution. I know that's going to take even longer, but that might be we can only do so much at the local level based on the fact that you can literally drive this from one community to another. So just something else to think about.
Well, that's a great point, one I didn't think of, but maybe even at the short term we can have a regional approach, right? So we can convene a meeting with area police chiefs and combat this collectively. So I'll take that back to the chief.
Thank you. All right. Any other new business? Mr. Quintal.
I have a couple of questions and comments. The hard-to-manage transfer station on Beaver Dam Road, do we actually manage that, or do we have like a sub in there that does that? And I'm only asking because I had 3 calls this week that
We actually, so we've been working with Republic for the past 25 years. We went out to bid last year and awarded Republic with an additional 3-year contract. So they continue to be the organization we work with.
Well, the complaint is that when they want to close, they close. So in other words, whatever you have in your truck, you drive over there, and there's a close sign on the gate. I understand today was extremely hot, so I get that. But I think we need to, find out what's going on over there. One day the back, I got some details. One caller said the backhoe was broken, so the guy just, put the sign closed. I mean, I think they should report that to Bill or somebody. I don't want to run the DPW, but
Yeah,
I'm
we'll
glad to hear
follow
that
up
it's
with the
not our
DPW
guys.
director.
Yeah. So if you could check that out. And the second thing is on what Ms. Cavaco said. I got 3 calls on White Horse Beach, and I did bring it up with you earlier on the way down here, Derek, and there was a RFP, and it was $50,000, and it could have been $75,000 to actually do it right. So in saying that, I think we need to, well, we can't do nothing with it at the moment, but how about reaching out to Park Plymouth and seeing if they might like to kick in a little bit of funding to help us pay whoever's doing it, so they can do it full time. Because the answer that I got from the staff was that the police are trying to do it, and we know that that's not going to work, and we don't have enough to, patrol regular shifts. So, do you have a problem maybe reaching out to Desmond and see if
we
he
certainly can talk to Desmond. I can just tell you the history. We worked with procurement. We put this out to bid this past year.
Yep.
And we only have a $50,000 line item for parking enforcement on Taylor Ave, White Horse Beach area. And so the 2 bids we received were well above the $50,000. So then we had to scale back the operation to what it is today in order to ensure that we have some level of coverage based upon the resources we have available. But, certainly happy to talk to Desmond to see if they're able to offer any assistance.
I mean, maybe he can help us out. I know they don't want to go down there because I think their contract goes as far as Bradford.
Right. They don't.
Where Jordan Road is, Aubrey Street. That's as far as they go. So I would kind of like to say, either take it over, extend your coverage, or help us out. I think that they would. I mean, I sat on that board for years. I mean,
Yeah,
because
in the
the
past,
town's
we've asked
also
them to-
losing money to help pay for this because they're not giving out the citations too. So,
Right. They
I mean,
manage
it's-
the citations for us, yes.
Yeah, exactly. So, and then that's what, controls it down there. So if we could at least ask on that, I'd be
I can talk to Desmond.
very happy. I'm sure Desmond will be happy I made that recommendation. And then the last thing, I know we don't answer to public comment, but I would like to answer some of your questions that you had. When the governor was at the Cal Center about approximately a month and a half ago, she approached me and said that she apologized that, we've been requesting a meeting. Actually, it was John Mahoney that was requesting the meeting all the time. That's, John said, make sure when you go, because he couldn't make it that day. You ask her. So she walked in and she said, I like your lapel, Dick. She said, and first thing I want to say is I apologize for not getting the message, but I just got it on my way here today from staff. She says, but staff will contact you before we leave today, and you'll have a date. So I did. As far as the information goes, I have no information. I don't know about anybody else on this board, but nobody said a word to me about what happened up there. And, that needs improvement, gentlemen. I look at my leaders. You're the chair and the vice chair of this board now. And I don't know, like I said, if Deb had it or Bill got some, but I didn't get any. And, we need to share our information. So, anytime you're willing to do it, I appreciate it. I'm sure the others will, unless they already know, I don't know. But I can tell you, I don't know. So, And that's all I'm going to say. Thank you.
Mr. Cohen?
A couple of things. Letters and correspondence. I see here on our agenda we have a section set aside for letters.
Mm-hmm.
So that section's new to me. I'm just trying to figure. So really, that's like correspondence.
Yeah, if you got
Yeah.
usually it's been like a physical letter that
Okay.
someone wanted to highlight in their discretion.
Okay, so I was just wondering. So letters and correspondence. That would be helpful to explain to people looking at our agenda what that section means. And I know that letters come into the town, and then you put them in our packets. Do we see them in our packets? Emails too, if someone is emailing me, because a constituent was emailing me about activities down at the Safe Harbors demolition site at the marina. They were bringing it to my attention. Do we get those emails that come in, are they sent to us? I was trying to go through my email system that I have set up. I wasn't sure.
So you'd get emails in two different ways. You'd
Okay.
get an email that's sent directly to you under your
Yep.
email address.
Yep.
Or there's a listserv that's set up for all 5 of the select board members.
Yep.
And through the town website, if an individual wants to email all select board members, they can click on that link, and one message goes to all 5 at the same time.
Okay. And are we to respond to those, or are you responding to them, or how does that usually work?
If it's a complaint,
Right.
we always handle the complaints.
Okay.
You know, if it's a message that they just want to deliver to the select board members, then we don't respond. We would defer that to a select board member who wants to respond to that. But you can rest assured that if you see a complaint, someone's worried about something, they got potholes in their community, we always forward that to the correct department.
Okay, good. All right. The other thing was that I had a chance to go down to Plymouth Beach this past weekend just to take a impromptu visit at the site, and I was very impressed with the recreational staff there, the seasonal staff. They were doing a great job moving people onto the beach. I noticed the plastic New Jersey barriers they set up to create lanes of traffic. In all my years going to that beach, I thought it was incredibly innovative way of moving people through the beach, out to Long Beach, whether you're going all the distance out to Long Beach or if you were staying on Plymouth Beach. It provided this very safe way of moving. I was concerned about loss of parking. Yes, there's probably probably 10 spaces that are lost. But I did note the seasonal staff that was there. They indicated that if the beach does get full, that people can park at Plymouth Patuxent Museum in their parking lot, and they can walk down. So I didn't know the town has that agreement. That was news to me. The town has an arrangement to allow cars to park there? Or?
I'd have to follow with Ann Slusser on that. I haven't heard that one, but, possibly it's in their new park management plan, but I can follow up with Ann and get back to you.
It'd be interesting to know how that works, too. But I was very impressed with the traffic flow and the parking and the staff. They were doing a great job. The other thing was that I did get a call from a constituent regarding the Little Red Schoolhouse. I guess we were making appointments. One of the appointments was made to someone outside of Cedarville Center. That the guidelines of the Cedarville the guidelines for the Little Red Schoolhouse Committee is to have people from Cedarville on it. We did have a problem a few years ago where someone was from another part of Plymouth on the committee, and we ran into some issues. It was felt that we should be looking at residents of Cedarville to serve on the Little Red Schoolhouse Committee. So I'll forward that to staff and to the chair so we can take a look at that. And the other thing is that just wanted to recognize that Plymouth Pride is having their annual event, the 29th, at Nelson Park. This is their 5th year. And I know that they have a crosswalk in downtown Plymouth, and it looks like it needs a little sprucing up. In preparing for that event on the 29th, it would be nice if we could spruce up that crosswalk on the waterfront. I know that they donated some paint, so the DPW has different colored paints for it. They've done it in the past, so I was just driving by and noticed it looked a little scruffy, so we might as well neaten it up for this weekend. So thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Any other new business? Ms. Iaquinto.
Just one more thing. I just wanted to give a big shout out to the library's literacy program. Mr. Janeo and I went to their annual commencement last night, and we had 19 graduates, new graduates with their GED degrees, and they told their stories, and they are all off to bigger and better things. Most of them are off to college programs. So it was just it was a wonderful, uplifting evening. I tutored in that program when I first moved to Plymouth, so I can speak to how welcoming that group is, how easy they make it for people who are doing something very difficult, like deciding to go back to school and improve their lives. So I just wanted to give them a shout out, recognize them, and just encourage anyone who feels that they need literacy services. Please visit the library. There's a wealth of information. They're a tremendous resource in our town. And anyone who's interested in volunteering in that literacy program, I know that you will also be welcomed into that program. So please take a look at it. It's really a gem that we have here in town.
Thank you. Any other new business? If no one else does. So I had intended to talk on these two topics last week, depending on time, but obviously we were there for 4.5 hours last week. We're here so I thought there would be a diminishing return on bringing it up at new business at the end of that meeting. We've been here for 3.5 hours this week, so perhaps diminishing return once again, but the longer we wait, the staler the information will be, so there's no time like the present at this point. So when we were at the Cedarville community room for the first town hall on the road 2 weeks ago, one of the things that was brought up was looking into the sand and gravel bylaw, which was reviewed by a Materials Excavation Committee back in 2015. That was done pursuant to the planning board because it's a zoning bylaw change. So that was something that people down there were interested in, and I think it does make sense to periodically review bylaws like that. I think that's not something that we can unilaterally initiate due to the nature of it, but when we have our next joint meeting with the planning board, that might be something we would want to look into restarting, particularly in relation to what constitutes incidental removal of gravel, since that has been a particular hot button item. So then, in relation to the day after that, we had that opportunity to meet with the governor at the State House in her office. We were originally told we'd only have 30 minutes with her. She was late, which was unfortunate, but she had an event that ran late, so I understand. But then she stayed with us longer than anticipated, so we ended up getting 45 minutes with her when we were only expected 30, so that was good. We talked about the land bank, the petition that we had, the home rule petition that we put up for, particularly in relation to affordable housing because of the need for affordable housing in Plymouth, as well as the desire to make it more affordable than it is under the current guidelines and structures, and in line with her administration's increased focus on affordable housing. We thought it was a good pairing. We also talked about issues related to nuclear matters in the community, such as the results of question 2 on the May 17th referendum ballot about wanting to communicate with state agencies, actors, and executive officials, including the governor, about enforcing the law in regards to Holtec's decommissioning of the plant and maintaining the health and safety of the community. So we talked about that. We talked about the dry cask storage on the site and wanting her to work with us to try and get a federal solution to removing the dry casks from Plymouth so that we are not a permanent warehouse for that stuff in our community, and there are other communities across the nation that are dealing with a similar issue that was created when the federal government failed to live up to their obligations. We were curious about her plans. She has talked about new nuclear in the Commonwealth And so we wanted to talk about what that would mean for Plymouth, and she expressed that she was not planning on trying to drive new nuclear to Plymouth, which was surprising to us, since when we heard that the governor wanted more nuclear in Massachusetts, we were the only active reactor outside of universities, so we assumed that they would be looking to bring it here. But according to her, that was not her intention. We also talked about state aid, particularly the dependence of our schools, our town side as well, but particularly our schools, and their dependence on state aid in relation to anticipated or actual cuts at the federal level and how that would trickle down. We mentioned that we were sure that all 351 communities have the similar concerns, but that Plymouth has unique geographical challenges that make it particularly sensitive if we were to lose any money in that front. And then we also talked about the DCR properties down on the waterfront, the grass to the right side of the rock, that little semicircle, as well as the state pier, and then the 1,000 acres. These are topics that we have been working with state agencies for a couple of years on and seem to have stalled, and she was going to follow up and try and restart those processes for us. So those are the topics that we were able to cover. We were happy to have the time we had with the governor for what we did. We also were able to meet with the housing chair for the State House of Representatives as well as the State Senate about the land bank proposal and answer their questions as well while we were up on Beacon Hill that particular day. So that's what was covered. All right. And any letters other than what was already talked about? Any old business? All right. Do I have a motion to adjourn, having concluded our business?
So moved.
Mr. Golden moves. Do I have a second?
Second.
Ms. Iaquinto seconds. Do we have any objection to adjourning, having concluded our business? If not, Mr. Golden?
Yes.
Ms. Iaquinto?
Yes.
Mr. Cohan?
Yes.
Mr. Quintal?
Yes.
And myself, yes. It is unanimous. We are adjourned at 9:31. Thank you.